Yo, what is happening, homies? What is going on? Happy, what is it? It's Monday? Happy Monday. Happy Victoria Day. It's Victoria Day here in Canada. But yo, how's everybody's day? How's it treating everybody? Hopefully everybody has enjoyed their weekend. Today's Monday. Anyway, welcome back to Kovac's Corner, and we're here with another tier list from Grubby. This is actually the first tier list that I seen that he did, and he did all the heroes. I wouldn't mind doing a refresher for it, just because it's Grubby, and I don't mind still learning about a couple of the heroes that I don't really know too much about, and especially to see the way how he ranks them in the tier list. But anyway, feel free to hit me up on any one of my other social media platforms down in the description below. If you want to support the channel, feel free to hit up the PayPal and hit up the Discord. I gotta push the Discord. All in all, I gotta push the Discord. Alright, hold on one sec. I gotta make sure that my TV's turned down so that when he talks, we'll be able to hear it clearly. Alright, so we're about to get into it. Don't forget, check him out, Grubby Talks, on his Grubby Talks page. He does a bunch of different Warcraft 3 videos, breakdowns and all of that. We got some other videos coming up that we're going to be reacting to as well. It's been doing pretty well, and he hasn't sent me a cease and desist. Right? So I appreciate Grubby for that. That and plus, like, the whole entire Warcraft 3 community. I've had a couple people reach out to me and, like, holler up. And I appreciate every single one of you guys. But anyway, let's get right into it and see what the King of Orcs has to say. Don't forget to like, sub, check him out. Grubby, this is his opinion. I've been asked for years to do a Warcraft 3 Heroes tier list. Here it is. With the 3 dots. I'm sick of you guys asking.
Yo guys, what's up? Often asked, never done before. I'm finally gonna do it. A Warcraft 3 hero tier list. There's 24 in all. 24 heroes. Every race has 4, and there's 4 races. That's 16. And there are 8 neutrally available heroes. Are there any useless heroes? Which ones are must pick, must take? I'm gonna be breaking it down for you one by one. Tier S is the best, and then A, B, C, D. Quick definition, S is something that I would almost always pick, or that you could never go wrong with, right? Tier A is very, very good. B is just good, C is viable, or let's say situational, and while D is the worst, it doesn't mean useless. There are going to be situations, even if it's not the current meta, it might be past metas of similar patches where they might be good. So without further ado,
and as per usual, we're going to be guessing what tier he's going to be placing each and every one of these heroes in.
Let's begin. The Blade.
All shout out to Grubby too. Fully appreciate him for doing this video series in order for us Warcraft 3 fanatics to be able to react to and judge our own opinions against it. Blade Master. So back in the day, he used to use nothing but the Blade Master. He would start with the Blade Master. There was a bunch of viable strategies with the Blade Master back in the day. With the Windwalk, you were able to go and base harass, make them spend more resources on like a tower, upgrading a tower, so that it makes them fall behind a little bit, like with humans, so on and so forth. And he was like all around, he's good against Undead. I'm not going to lie. He's really good against Undead. Because your Acolytes are super low, super squishy. But I know that he has switched up his playstyle. Right? So if it was back in the day, I know he'd put him in tier S, but there's been so many complications with the Blade Master recently, with all the updates and stuff. I think he's going to put him in tier A.
Master. Where is the Blade Master going to go? Blade Master has been a ubiquitous hero for the Orc race since time immemorial. 2003 to 2024, we have 21 years of competitive history for Warcraft 3. And I competed for 7 of those, from 2003 to 2010. Blade Master, in Reign of Chaos, is not the same as he was in Frozen 3.
And that's a fact. So back in the day in ROC, Blademaster was the shit. He was the pinnacle. Like, I didn't pick him too much. It's not true. It was all situational. For 1v1s, I would usually pick him just due to the fact of the Windwalk on top of... he has that mirror image where he could break into 3. And you're able to confuse your enemies.
Throne.
And then Bladestorm was really OP.
2008 is not the same as he is now. He received balance nerfs when Reforged was coming out in 2019, and when Reforged finally came out in 2020, he received nerfs, -2 agility, which is a really big deal. He went from 24 to 22, if I remember correctly. That's less attack speed, armor, and damage. He also lost cooldown on his Windwalk. So before, he had 0-second cooldown on Windwalk. That means he could come out of invisibility, hit someone, and immediately Windwalk again. There was Fate time, a small period during which you could still see him, but at least you could click it immediately, which meant if you moved fast enough, even an immediately casted Stormbolt would actually disjoint and miss by the time Fate time completes.
Facts.
Now there's a 2-second cooldown. And this has made Windwalk, Creep Steal, and Creep Harass really fallen out of vogue. Mirror Image has been greatly buffed. Bladestorm has been buffed a bit. Claws of Attacks and Circlets have been nerfed in the drop table, and those are really key for him as well. So overall, he's had more nerfs than buffs. I think if we're looking at the year 2008, I would definitely put Blademaster in tier S. But in 2000...
Just because of all the updates, all the nerfs that he ended up receiving. That -2 to agility really did cripple him on top of the 2-second cooldown. That's yeah, so like I wouldn't pick him. I'd pick him for like maybe a 3rd hero, maybe a 2nd hero, probably a 3rd hero, but I would probably choose Tauren Chieftain over him for a 3rd hero.
2024, I cannot justify putting him in tier S. He's neither must-take nor crazy dominant. There are many counters to him, and he's got some weaknesses. He's still one of the... He's probably the top of A, or the very, very bottom of S, but I'm gonna say A.
Put him on A. Here, give me 1 second. Close my window because I could hear birds chirping away. Because I got my TV super low, and I got the desktop audio sound on my OBS, so that you'd be able to hear him clear. Hopefully the echo isn't there.
I think he gets outclassed by basically every orc hero. I think he's actually the worst orc hero right now. Then.
So for right now, myself personally, I'd put him a B tier.
Let's go to the Farseer. Farseer.
So for Farseer, for me, S tier. Right away, S tier. I've started with Farseer, Thrall, the whole lore behind it and shit like that. He's my favorite. He has the 2 dire wolves, Chain Lightning. What's that one move called? Like Farseer or something like that, where he's able to see the other opponent's base, and then Earthquake. Earthquake is sick if you wanna, like, if you have a 1v1 match, more so 4v4s and 3v3s, even 2v2s, you're able to level them up to level 6 a little bit more efficiently, and it's almost like straight up siege damage. He can take out a whole town, no problem, if you're having troubles against towers, the way how we were earlier with Undead against Orc. If you had a Farseer level 6, towers would be gone. And yeah, it doesn't do any damage to units, but it slows units, and it could be aggravating if someone's trying to like run away and they're pretty low on health, all their units collectively, and they're trying to run away as a group. You could use your Earthquake, slow them all so that you could catch up, probably run around, head them off, and just attack. And yeah, pretty much insult to injury. I'm going to hit you with Earthquake that doesn't do any kind of damage to your units, but I'm going to fuck your units up anyway. For me, it's an S tier. Grubby might put it S. He might put it A. Let's see.
offers Orc a lot. He's also seen his share of nerfs and buffs. But one thing that has never changed is that he is able
Might put
to
him on a
have
seat.
vision from minute 2 and 1 second, which is when you first can get your hero out, 2 minutes and 1 second. From that point onwards, he's able to start scouting 3 different places. 1 with the hero, 2 with the first feral spirit, and 3 with the next feral spirit. This allows him to see many different places at the same time. Unlike Blademaster, feral spirits can actually squeeze past 1 gap buildings, so that Farseer feral spirits can hunt peasants and moonwell.
I didn't know that the ferals could squeeze past that. Hold on.
That Farseer feral spirits can hunt peasants and moonwells that are in otherwise impossible to reach areas for Blademaster and grunts.
Yeah.
So the Farseer is able to do economic harass and pressure that can destabilize enemy
That
economy
one
and can
space.
slow down their tech. And this is very useful. Information in a game of imperfect information is also incredibly key. The Chain Lightning, the Farsight, and the Earthquake are
Farsight.
all not as important as the Feral Spirits for scouting and the harassment. And then Feral Spirits are also free creeping. By free I mean it's 2 bonus units, albeit weaker than a Grunt, but it's still bonus units. That means more damage. Definitely more damage than the Blade level 1 represents by himself.
So yeah, more damage on top of, like, you could kind of use them as a barrier too, right? If you're going and you have like 1 grunt, your 2 ferals, you could kind of like, in between your 2 ferals, you switch them out as one's taking damage, and once it gets starts getting low, you pull it back, put the other one up, let it take the brunt of the damage for your grunt as your grunt is attacking, and then obviously by that time, both your ferals will probably end up being popped, like done. But the big creep should be done, or as they like to say, the cheese in between the bread, right? The cheese should be destroyed. You should be able to pick up the item and then pop your ferals within the next like couple seconds.
When you add Farseer and the 2 wolves together, especially when attacking medium armor enemy creeps. And medium armor creeps take bonus damage from normal. Hero damage doesn't do bonus damage to anything. So if you put your feral spirits on the ranged creeps with medium armor, it's even more speed accelerant. And
That's crazy.
Perhaps most importantly, they tank. They tank the creeps as well. And the 4th really cool thing is when any summon in, well, almost any summon in Warcraft 3 gives XP. I'll actually get to the exceptions later with the Tavern Heroes. Almost every summon gives XP, and Feral Spirits are no different. But Feral Spirit is the type of summon that when you make another set, which you can do after they reach the halfway point of their summoning time left, it unsummons the previous ones. So let's say Feral Spirit lasts for a minute. After 30 seconds, you can resummon them, and then the 2 that exist disappear. And this has been a key component of Orc harassment against all races since forever, basically. So you end up denying experience. Send in Water Elemental, send in Beetles, and if they're almost dead, they're going to give experience. Feral Spirits do not. So, very key.
So feral spirits don't give XP. That's dope. That's dope.
I will say that Blademaster Mirror Image has also opened the way up for being in multiple places at the same time. Farseer covers 3 areas. Blade and Mirror Image cover 2 areas. So that's pretty cool. And just like Feral Spirits, Mirror Image gives XP now, it deals a little damage now, and it resummons when he casts Mirror Image again.
I didn't know that Mirror Image is actually dealing damage now. That's nuts.
But I've not yet seen Mirror Image Blademaster openers to achieve the same kind of results as Farseer Feral Spirit for many reasons. And that's why I think Farseer is a higher tier hero. Having said this, even though Farseer I think is tier S and Blade is tier A, in some matchups you are still better served by going Blade instead of Farseer. So this is not a list that says never go for anything except S if you have S. There are situational advantages on certain maps, and in certain maps where one hero might be better than the others.
That's something that you have to take in consideration too, is the maps on top of the routes that you want to take for XP, right? Your little creep paths, whether or not you even try to go for a creep. If you're just trying to do a quick rush without creeps, like, good luck.
Then we have the Tauren Chieftain.
So Tauren Chieftain, I love Tauren Chieftain with his stomp. He has the revive, so he come back to life if he ends up getting murked off. And then he also has the aura that he can use, which increases the attack of ground. I don't know if it's all units or just ground units, one of the two, right? Yeah, and then he has that other move where he does the stomp and he sends it out like a shockwave. I think that's what it's called, shockwave. I wasn't a fan of that before. I was more so using stomp all the time, but I've noticed to use shockwave now if I were to play with him, right? Like at first, because you can make him second or you can make him third, right? If you're making him third, give him the aura, just because it'll give the boost to all your units. He's third, came in last, you know, don't worry about his war stomp or any of that, because you could go get XP and you could level him pretty quick, especially if you're moving with a little battalion, right? You already got 2 other heroes running, because usually it'll be Seer and Witch Doctor that you'll see right away, and then Tauren Chieftain or a different third, unless they wanted to like do a rush, but like more into that after. I would put Tauren Chieftain in an A, just because I would get him all the time. I like his move set that he has. He's really tanky, so like you could use him as a tank. You could deck him out the way how we've been doing with the Beetle, like a couple of the 1v1 matches that we've been doing and whatever, where I get my second hero if it's a mirror match, like what happened today, and we get the Beetle. I try to make him tanky as fuck. Same with DK. I'll try to make him tanky as fuck because he's running in. Want him to have all that shield, right? I'd put him in an A. I don't know what Grubby will put him in. Grubby might put him in a B or a C. I'm not 100% sure, but he's a little bit biased too because he's King of the Orcs, right? So he might put him in A tier.
Where do we put Tauren Chieftain? Tauren Chieftain has an aura that has been nerfed since the majority of Warcraft 3's lifespan. It doesn't have as much movement speed as it used to. And his War Stomp and Shockwave have been rebalanced from time to time. Once they added more damage to War Stomp, they did end up nerfing his stun duration a bit, but then they made Shockwave cheaper from 100 mana to 90. So what is TC? What is his role? He is one of the best scalers, the only strength hero for Orc. He is naturally resistant to nukes. By nukes in Warcraft 3, we don't mean, you know, radioactive, radio-thermal nuclear warfare.
It's not Command and Conquer.
Well, it's very close. Coil Nova, Stormbolt, you know. Hero spells deal damage to heroes at a rate of 70% of their value, but that's still a lot of damage. It directly impacts their health and bypasses the armor stat. So the only thing that really helps is high health. So any strength hero is resistant more to spells, and any agility hero with low health but high armor is relatively more resistant to basic attacks. So the TC is resistant to spells. That makes him an ideal second hero. If you make an intelligence or a agility hero second or third, they're gonna have such a small health pool that a single Coil Nova will kill them. But if you make a Tauren Chieftain second or third, he comes out with 800 life, right? So he's gonna be pretty resistant to that. Plus, the bigger your army is, the bigger impact getting Endurance Aura has. Yeah. Because it affects everyone around him. No cap. Whereas Shockwave and Stomp have a cap. Shockwave.
Endurance Aura passive. Increase the movement speed and attack rate of nearby friendly units. Area of effect 90. Air, ground, friend, self, vulnerable, invulnerable. Allows targets. That's crazy. So level 3 movement speed is a plus 20%, attack rate plus 15%. Yeah, level 5, that's crazy. Because like this is one of the dopest. And then his reincarnation, obvious, for his ultimate. But yeah, no, man, this is so good. So good to have.
Wave has an actual hard cap built into it, and Warstomp has a cap in terms of how many units of surface area can stand around him. Endurance affects everybody. So he's the best scaler. He's a great second and third hero. The only thing he can't do is be a starter hero. Farseer and Blade can be starter heroes. TC has had some starting hero builds. I'm not saying it doesn't exist to do it. TC Headhunter is a big one. But I don't remember a single instance in the Warcraft 3 meta of the pro scene of any level worth playing, like any top 50 player, where TC first has been successfully implemented and used to beat a player of note. There is one example. About 3 years ago, Lyn beat Foggy with TC first on Last Refuge. And that's the only time I've ever remembered seeing it. And I don't believe Lyn would ever do that if he thought that it was going to be a dangerous game against Foggy regardless. Now, Foggy is a very good Ukrainian Night Elf player, and Lyn is the best orc in the world right now. And Foggy is good and could maybe take game from Lyn, but Lyn is highly favored. I think he did it because he saw Foggy was choking. I saw the game, he was kind of choking. It's not supposed to be good. Some people will disagree with me and leave angry comments in the YouTube video, but it's invalid. TC has never been a good starting hero. That doesn't stop him from being tier S though. TC is one.
Game of S tier. Game of S tier. I thought he'd give him like a B or an A. I'd give him an A tier. Just because I would use him, as Grubby just said, and as I explained beforehand, as like a second or a third hero to spawn in. Usually a second hero, to be honest.
One of the best heroes in the game. In fact, Orc has some of the best heroes in the game. I believe many races would make Farseer or TC if they could. Orc does have some weaker straight up fighting units. Many of Orc's units are like support. And I believe what makes Orc balanced with the other races is that they have relatively good heroes. So you're going to see a lot of Orc heroes on top. You're going to see one race in particular. Can you guess which one? Going to be more towards the lower ends of the tier list. Okay, where is Shadowhunter going to go?
Okay, so Shadowhunter, Witch Doctor. Yo, Steve, what's going on, bro? We're just reacting to another one of Grubby's tier list videos. It was his first tier list video of all the heroes, right? We're going through Orc right now. As his video says, I've been asked for years to do a Warcraft 3 Heroes tier list. Here it is. So we're just running down how we would use the hero, utilize the hero, and yeah, there's some stuff about some of these heroes that I don't know that I would love to learn a little bit more about. Don't get me wrong, I've seen this before, but when it first came out, I seen it and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. It was like a one-off, but now we started doing the tier list. We started doing the reactions to the tier list, so I was like, might as well go all the way back because I wouldn't mind seeing this one again. Get a little bit more of the understanding of a couple of the heroes that you're able to purchase at the shop, right? Just like to round our game out a little bit more. Not only that, but in the community tab, I'm going to be holding a poll pretty soon, probably by the end of the week. I'm going to put it up for what class we're going to be using for next month, because we're going to switch from Undead. We've been doing pretty good with Undead. I got a dub that I'm going to be posting after the stream. I have to record it and stuff again, but like after the stream I'm going to be posting that. That was earlier today, and we are going to get back into it. So the Witch Doctor, he has the healing a good majority of the time. He goes second. You'll see Farseer Witch Doctor combo a good majority of the time, or you'll see Tauren Chieftain Witch Doctor combo, and then into like Beastmaster a good majority of the time. Healing, huge benefit. I think it heals up depending on the level. He'll probably pull the stats up, but I think at its fullest it heals 8 units, 6 to 8 units that are close by, something like that, which is dope. He has those snake traps that he throws down that do like really small damage, but I think it like does like a stun kind of effect to it. He also has where he could turn a hero into an animal, like a frog or whatever it is. And I've never really gotten to his ultimate. I've never used his ultimate. So I don't know much about that.
Shadowhunter.
And I would put him in a B tier just because I don't use him. I don't utilize him correctly. Right? Grubby said they're probably going to be in the upper tier, so he'll probably give him an S class. Like, I would put him in S just for the healing. And, like, he's an all-round... No, I'll take it back. I would put him in A. He's above B. I'd put him in A.
Where do we go with Shadowhunter? Shadowhunter has a hard disable at range that is practically instant cast. Heck.
Yeah, he's ranged too. Almost forgot. So, like, top tier A.
Hex does many things. Hex has a lot of intended and unintended consequences. It basically turns a hero into a sheep, preventing them from casting any abilities. They can't attack. They can move, but very slowly. And that's what it's supposed to do. They can't cast spells, no attack, move slowly, right? And they stay in that state for some time. It is dispellable, so a quick devour magic or abolish magic removes it. But Hex does so many things. Here's the intended things that I just mentioned, and then there is interrupting channels, right, which you can do with it. But there's more. Hex actually prevents mana regeneration on a hero while they're a sheep. Probably something to do with the vagary of the coding, in that hero has temporarily been substituted by a different type of unit that momentarily occupies the stats of that hero, so they get momentarily no mana regeneration. Another thing is the hero will be considered as a hero for XP acquisition sharing, but doesn't get any XP. So say for instance, you kill my hero level 1, which gives you 100 XP, and you've got a shadow and a blade, but I have hexed your shadow. 50 XP goes to shadow, 50 goes to blade, but shadow's not at home, so he doesn't get anything. Blade gets 50, shadow gets nothing.
Wow.
So not only does their presence there steal the XP by sharing with the other heroes present, evenly split, but they also don't get it. They cannot learn while they're a sheep, which kind of makes sense when you think about it. So sometimes you see hex harass when someone is creeping. You go and hex their hero as they're about to kill a big creep, and they lose the XP. For a long time, people didn't really know this. I did. And then you could see that they didn't even hold their attack on the creep. The hex is very strong. Then you've got Serpent Wards. Serpent Ward is one of the most broken summons in the game.
That's a Serpent Ward.
You definitely don't use it.
And no, what's really dope about Serpent Ward too is that you could actually get 5 of them, I'm pretty sure, on the field all at once. So right now, I'm still saying he's top of A until like it changes my mind, because I know Grubby's going to put him in S.
All the time, as it is pretty weak and outmatched against enemy ranged units.
It helps to like block.
So it is not good against
if you're getting
riflemen,
chased.
it's not good against archers, fiends, it pretty much does nothing. It's pretty weak against heroes as well. And that's why you don't really see serpents as much as you could or should. But serpents completely destroy sorceresses, priests, dryads, huntresses, talents. They're just insane. You can have up to 6 at the same time if you keep spamming them. They have this funny status as a summon that doesn't get auto-attacked. So a Quill Beast will draw auto-attack fire, but Serpent Wards have to be focused one by one. They can have hundreds of points of health, and they can do 40-50 damage of piercing, which results in like 70 damage on units. Very, very powerful. You don't use it all the time, also because of how good Hex and his other skill is. You've got Healing Wave. Healing Wave is one of the most reliable, quick ways of healing. At level 2 and 3, it's more efficient than waiting for heal solves. You just drink Mass Clarities, buy a mana pot, and you start heal waving your army. It's only the most grievous wounds you would still heal solve, but you'll rely more and more on heal wave as the game goes on. Shadow has occasionally been used as a starting hero in various metas of Warcraft 3, and he is a fantastic second or third hero. At 475 starting HP, he's very vulnerable as a third hero to nukes.
Yeah, super nukes. If you get him as a third hero, he's the like it's not viable. There's no point in getting him as a third hero unless you just need the healing wave, I guess. But a good majority of the time, it's like you gotta get him second. But like I'll opt out and get these three instead of him. Situational, I'll get him second, or like super situational, I'll get him third, depending on the situation. So just for the healing wave.
But because he has Hex, and Hex outranges a coil and it out animation speeds a death coil, Shadow gets the Hex to DK before he gets coiled. And he can be a surprise factor in focusing down an enemy hero. With Stomp and Hex, I believe Orc is the only race that has in their main 4 heroes, 2 heroes that have a hard lockdown. Open up with a Hex, then follow up with a War Stomp. Then soon Hex will be available again, and then Stomp again. And you've got some pretty nasty lockdown that can be very difficult to play against the worse you are. For undeads that attack move into an orc and they have their Death Knight in front, if they get hexed and stomped, that could just be the end of the game. And for many years, so many undeads lost to this. It took decades for undeads to get good enough with the micro during hectic battles to consistently keep their Death Knight away from the threat of Hex and War Stomp, and to all.
I remember those days at ROC. That's what it was. When you, well, no, TFT. When TFT first came out, when people were figuring out how to use the orcs correctly and use the shop because the prices changed on all the units, and he was at it because he wasn't in ROC, right? I seen where people go Blade Master first, him second, Witch Doctor second, and then Tauren Chieftain third. And between the Stomp and the Hex for heroes trying to get away. And then you get crazy focus heroes trying to get away.
Always carrying
like
vulnerability.
After everyone's clashing and their one hero starting to fall back and then they're starting to run away, you get Hexic. And then you just focus it with Tauren Chieftain, go over and stomp it because you'll be able to catch up with how slow it is, and then just follow up with another Hex. It's pretty slick,
on every
man.
hero, so that they can
slick.
actually outmatch the quick lockdown orcs can do. With this, I believe we have 3 heroes on tier S for Orc. They're absolutely fantastic. I haven't spoken much about the heroic abilities for each of them, their ults. I can mention it briefly. Bladestorm looks better than it is. Generally, you have neither got the mana, nor is it worth the mana. It can be quite devastating, but it gets weaker the better enemies micro. And while it is a favorite for rat orcs, those ladder guys that go bat riders and towers, and then start bladestorming your towers and they're liquid firing your base, that's a noob build. We don't really see that at the pro games, and that's why Bladestorm partially not so hot. Big Bad Voodoo is so good that you don't take it when you reach level 6. You actually go level 3 Hex, level 3 here.
See, like, Big Bad Voodoo, I've never used it. I've never had him level 6. So, like, I've never had to use it.
That's how good Big Bad Voodoo is. Worse than a basic ability. It is potentially very powerful. I do not blame the original designers for Warcraft 3 for thinking it's going to be insanely good, but it has too many downsides. Shadow becomes a bullseye because he's the only one that's vulnerable. You can just interrupt it with any channel interrupt. It's 200 mana that could be 2.5 healing waves almost. 2 heal waves, 2.2 heal waves. No one actually gets healed while they're under Big Bad Voodoo, whereas 2 heal waves, does heal them. Heal wave level 3 is huge. Your entire allied army loses all of their positive buffs, including Spirit Link and Bloodlust, because they turn invulnerable. Farseer Earthquake only damages buildings. You don't win fights with this, and unless you can Earthquake the enemy's entire base, it's not going to be a win condition. Reincarnation does nothing until you die. Sometimes when TC has low health and mana, enemies will literally choose not to kill him, which means that Reincarnation is like being an invincible 50 auto attack damage hitting cow, which is pretty cool, but for a level 6 I hope for a bit more than 50 DPS. Still powerful, you can kill your own TC and come back with full health and mana, it's quite strong.
Nice.
But it's not their ults that make them good. Alright, let's move on to the next race. Let's go to Undead. But apparently, someone told me, Shadowhunter Hex no longer stops regeneration. I'm not 100% sure if it's true or not, but I figure I should mention it. Maybe that's not an advantage anymore. Alright, Undead. Let's begin with...
D. 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 Super situational, D. Just straight D. Like, tanky, you could get him as a second unit, as a counter unit if you wanted to, or like a third, more so a third unit, but a good majority of the time people aren't taking him third, right? We're taking someone else from the shop more often than not. He's D, super situational, depending on if you're doing a mirror match in Undead, you're trying to do a straight up rush, and like I have a video of that up on the channel, straight rush with them, and that's when you're getting you're getting the necro rod as well, so that you're able to make skeletons, and you're making your scarabs to go as you're pumping ghouls to push in, and that's the only time he's actually really good, in my opinion. He's D tier, man. He's a good tank. He can take a lot of damage, but he's D tier.
Cryptlord. Cryptlord has seen very little play recently. Cryptlord's major role in the meta has been as a third hero for 2004 Undead? 2000.
Well, it's really good. It's his spikes through the ground that he uses, and it stuns units as it does some like AoE damage too. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty dope. It comes in useful, but usually a tier 3 hero, as Grubby just said, if you even bother to get him in tier 3. Straight situational, I'm staying with D. I think Grubby might put him D as well.
For 2005, Undead was often going for Cryptlord third, in the combination of DK, Lich, Cryptlord.
Oh, I put him C.
And then they would go Impale and Spiked
Counter.
Catapace. Spiked Catapace, not because it was good, but because they generally wouldn't want to spend the mana on beetles when Impale was a thing. Impale's quite good, and it got better. It's a nice stun. It was pretty good against Archmage mounted King Rifles, which was the main meta that we saw back then. But the problem is there are better choices. The Pitlord generally provides a better siege than the third hero Cryptlord, whereas the Dark Ranger provides better hero control by using silence, and then also you get skeletons from every peasant you kill, which is better than beetles because it doesn't cost almost any mana. Not so much anyway. You get loads of skeletons, more than you could even have beetles. Cryptlord Impale is not bad. Spiked Catapace has been buffed. It's still not a reason to go for a hero, having a lot of armor and doing some damage return. And the beetle build did see a large uptick when it got buffed. You used to be able to summon 1 beetle per summon, and this was changed to 2 beetles per summon. And it's actually back down to 1 again, right? You were able to have 6 beetles? Was that what it was at in 2020 or 2021? Cryptlord really just doesn't see a lot of play right now. He's had brief periods where he could go first hero Cryptlord, briefly after Reforged came out and he got buffed. But that's not possible anymore. He has never really been used as a second hero. And as a third, he still has theoretic use, but there are just better options. I'm not going to say that Cryptlord is completely not usable anymore, but I will say that right now in 24, nobody's using Cryptlord in any position. So I'm probably not going to put him in tier D, because I think if you force a top Undead player to use Cryptlord instead of any of the other starting heroes, I think it can still be pretty good. I think it's probably under-researched at the moment, under-practiced. But it's either the bottom of tier C or the top of tier D.
Just from what I've noticed from like practicing, because I'll go up against the computer on different difficulties and stuff, what I've noticed for using him, for using Raw, is you have to rush. You get a couple of fiends, and then you go into necromancers and banshees.
I'm not sure 100% sure in which one to put him, but it's just not a very good hero right now.
I'd take back D and I'd put him in
It
C
could
is
be
what
D
I
or
said
it
as
could be
well.
C.
I thought he was going to
Alright,
put him
next.
straight D.
Lich.
Lich is S. Lich is S. Lich is S. With the defense aura, the mana regen, and then he has his nuke with the ice, and then he has his ultimate, which is like DK or something like that, and that does huge damage on buildings, like AoE damage.
I'm just not going to beat around the bush. Instant tier S. One of the best heroes against air, with Frost Nova basically hitting every single air unit. If that air gaggle of units is flying towards you, Frost Nova has no amount of unit cap, and air
Frost
units
Nova.
are the only unit type of unit in the game that can congregate in a single point in space and form a kind of singularity. It's always been like this in Blizzard games. It's only when they stop moving or flying towards a communal point that they start auto-spreading to about the same spread that ground units would otherwise have. So you can try to counter Frost Nova by splitting your air units in a really wide area and then flying towards an opponent. All the Undead has to do is to move back a bit, right? Just move back until your air units funnel back in, and then they hit you with the Frost Nova.
Huh?
Frost Nova has an instant cast point. There's no animation wind-up, so it is a great creep stealing mechanic as well. It is fantastic on air. It does 50% slow and 50% attack slow on every unit hit. It does good damage. The most damage on the main target, with additional 50 to 100 to 150 damage on units around it.
Yeah, which is huge. That's like definitely, that's the nuke. That's why I started, after watching Happy and stuff and understanding more about the Lich with the Frost Nova and how it can hit air units and then every other air unit up to 150 depending on the level that it's at. It's all around just a nuke. By the time you're level 5, that should be like level 3.
It's just what's not to like. Frost Nova is 125 mana, but with Dark Ritual, especially as Lich gets higher level, it's Frost Nova City all day, every day.
Yes.
A great hero nuke with the slow and the damage, and it reduces a lot of damage from the enemy as well. Frost Armor, fantastic ability. Basically, it drops the enemy attack speed by 50% when they hit the target. Frost Armor on a unit also gives extra armor, so it drops their damage. So essentially, if you're hitting something that has Frost Armor, you're doing less than half damage because of the extra armor points and your slower attack speed. And your slower movement as well.
One of the best nuke heroes ever, man. Same with defense right there, too. On top of the mana regen that he's about to get into, and then his DK attack, or Decrepify attack.
So if the unit moves away,
correctly.
you're doing even fewer hits. So Frost Armor takes you from 100% damage and drops you to like 30 or 20% damage when you're hitting that target, which is insane. It's an insane buff. It's only 40 mana, and although you can level up Frost Armor to get more points of armor, that's really the worst scaling I've ever seen on an ability, because it's not the slow amount that scales, it's just the amount of armor. And that's arguably the least important thing. You immediately get 50% damage reduction from Frost Armor, and the rest is the extra 5 or 10% that you get from the armor. It was rescaled a bit a few years ago to be more points of armor unlocked behind the higher levels. It really doesn't matter because it's all about the slow. It's cheap, it's spammable. The counterplay is either dispelling it, but every form of dispel is more expensive mana-wise than Frost Armor itself. And the other point of counterplay is just don't attack. Just don't attack that target. Keep switching targets. Which means Lich gets to protect key targets like heroes or certain key units with Frost Armor. Yeah. So
that's how I started using it too. Is I'll select what units I want to hit with the Frost Armor instead of just auto casting it. Like if it's a situation, you could auto cast it and it'll hit up the units that need it the most. I'm pretty sure, like the most viable units that you have. But like I've been like picking and choosing when I've been using it. We're getting
Lich is
better.
amazing. Death and Decay is kind of a game ender. It's not a key spell for him, but it's decent. Death Knight.
Death Knight, S tier. S tier. His coil is a nuke, plus it heals. His aura gives extra defense and attack. I'm pretty sure, like attack speed percentage. His resurrect that he's able to do for his ultimate is pretty sick. Yeah.
And if I didn't make it clear, I think Lich is tier S. Death Knight. Where does Death Knight go?
S.
How many games can Undead play without the Death Knight? Can you go for Lich first and then not follow up with Death Knight? Probably not, because Lich needs the healing because he's kind of squishy. Can you play Fiends without going Death Knight? Without that movement speed to help kite? Without the regeneration? Do your statues ever receive enough regeneration? You know, any mechanical unit in the Undead army receives bonus regeneration as well from Unholy Aura. Not just bionic units, like Necromancers and Fiends and Frostworms, but also mechanical units gain regeneration that otherwise would never happen.
I didn't know that Unholy Aura affected everything, even mechanical units. That's insane. What?
That you would always have to spend money on. Statues would be much easier to hunt down. So DK is also tier S for me. You pretty much Undead will play 99% of their games with both. Now, of course, you also have to talk about alternatives. You have to talk about what the hero does relative to others. Can't put everyone in S? Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. I'm just starting with the ones that have the most tier S. I'll revise it if everyone is in tier S. DK has a 300 damage nuke on 75 mana on 6 seconds cooldown, 6 or 7 seconds cooldown, I think. That is free unit kills every time you meet an enemy army. The movement speed he offers, together with the spam ability of Coil, especially Coil Nova together, you kill a unit instantly when 2 armies meet, and then you can start moving away because you have that good movement speed. If all other things are okay. So DK, of course, he also has Death Pact, which can help save himself. You generally don't need it.
That's what that is. Yeah, regenerates his life from. So like I like to use that, and same with the mana regen from Lich on units that are about to like perish, so that they don't get the XP. I've already marked the unit, plus I was able to use the unit for a little bit extra. It still had a use before it ended up getting destroyed.
It's pretty much all about Coil.
I forgot about that because I don't
can barely
really
be
use
played
it
without DK and without Lich, and Undead is a good race. So where does it come from? Partially these two.
Yeah.
Next, Dreadlord.
Dreadlord. He's situational too, because you could do a ghoul rush with the vampire aura that he has. He has the sleep, which is actually really good. You could have him as a second hero. Usually a third hero. Get him as a third hero and get the sleep. What else does he have? Vampire aura. That. He has that wave, like a bug wave or something like that. It's green, shoots out, and goes in a cone. It does pretty good. And then, ultimately, his ultimate is the best ultimate in the game. Just because he ends up summoning that one big boulder mamajama that has that unholy fire that he has around him. And he does mad damage, super tanky.
Dreadlord is a funny one. Yeah, he enables sleep
I'd give him a
surround
B
fast
tier.
expansion. He also
A
is
tier
a good
if I
third
used
hero
him
to
more,
come with Carrion
because you
Swarm
can
to deal with
utilize him,
things like
but I'd give him a
flying
B
machines
tier.
and siege engines. His ultimate is one of the best in the game.
It is
Next
the best.
time I should rank ultimates on the tier list. Ultimate is one of the best in the game, Infernal. Vampiric Aura is one of the worst auras in the game. It gives lifesteal to melee. Melee is less powerful than the developers originally probably thought it was going to be and intended. Ranged kind of dominates Warcraft 3 in general. That makes Vampiric and Thorns pretty weak. It's also the kind of melee units that Undead has. that aren't as easily used with Vampiric. Ghouls and Abominations. Ghouls have very little health, and Abominations don't
Ghouls,
have that much
bombs,
damage. So it can be quite hard to get a lot of value out of it. Dreadlord solo has been a strat sometimes. I have seen matches won with it, perhaps tournaments. I've seen some Death Knight Dreadlord strats in the early 2000s. That was pretty fun, DK into Dreadlord. He was a key hero in Reign of Chaos.
Yeah.
Right? But we don't see Dreadlord all that often. I do think that it is a quite good hero, but the days of Dreadlord first are not really upon us anymore. It is still somewhat possible, but it's going to be quite tough, and you need to have a very special strategy. I'm going to rank him in tier B, first
Nice.
B hero, the Dreadlord. Soloing him and getting Infernal is very powerful. Spamming Carrion Swarm to kill peasants is powerful. Defending fast expos with sleep, quite powerful. But these days, fast expos are also possible with Lich first. Also possible with DK first. Didn't used to be possible, but Expo for Undead got buffed a lot in 2020. And now you can actually fast Expo with any of the 4 heroes. Before, it could only be done with Dreadlord. And I would have probably placed him in B as well, still. So,
yeah, no, he's B
next,
tier.
that's the 4 Undead heroes. Next, let's go to Night Elf.
Night Elf.
This is going to be a little controversial, I think, for some of you. Because Night Elf is a pretty strong race, but I don't...
Night Elf is a mad strong race. They can build super fast. They usually, like, I've seen accounts with over 400 or 500 wins in Night Elves and less than 100 like less than 10 losses doing 1v1s. Like, Night Elf is super OP. Even from back in ROC days, there's a lot more counters to it now, but it used to be super OP. It still kind of is.
I don't think their heroes are as good as some people think. Let's begin with the Demon Hunter.
Demon Hunter, I would say, is a S. Straight S. Back when I used to play in ROC days, you grab him. I wasn't too keen on getting him first. It took me a little while to, like, develop that playstyle. But yeah, no, his mana burn, his unholy aura, like the fire that he's able to use that ends up burning. Pretty much he was Superman. He was known as Superman, right? You get him to level 6, use his ultimate, turns into like what, the Shadow Lord or something like that. Nuts. And then he also has Aura 2, which helps with evasion. And yeah, no man, super OP. You used to call him Superman. You give him, like, you deck him out with 3 to 4 claws and a couple things for armor. You're good. You're good. He used to go and just wipe armies, and by the time he ended up being finished with his ultimate, it was probably maybe about like 30 seconds to wait for it to pop again. Not now.
The Destroyer of Fun. The Destroyer of Fun. Demon Hunter has mana burn, and since recently his immolation has been buffed as well. Before, he was a mana burn evasion bot. That meant he was a high damage, high survivability tank with evasion and high armor
Super
class.
fast.
And then he had mana burn to stop himself from getting nuked by things like Stormbolt, Coil, and Nova. So if he removes enemy mana and he's good against physical, then he pretty much has it all. He creeps well because he has good damage. He is very efficient with healing, like Moonwells and rejuvenation and heal potions, because he has such high armor class. And so he's a good hero. He is common enough to be used to actually get his ultimate unlocked from time to time.
Yeah.
In games that go long enough into the 40-minute mark, you might get his ult sometimes, and it is one of the best.
Turns into
We used
Superman,
to call this
bro.
Superman, because nothing can beat it. And you would have to run when he turns on Metamorphosis. It just destroys everything. Buildings, splash damage, it kills heroes, it becomes invincible. Superman. And I never found its kryptonite, except running away. The Demon Hunter, I think, is either tier S or tier A.
Its kryptonite was another Demon Hunter, or if you had the Dreadlord to constantly keep putting him to sleep when he was in his ultimate, just to fuck with him, and then like mana burned the shit out of him. You know, you'd have to nuke that mana, so his unholy aura fire wouldn't be able to work anymore because he'd be out of mana. Because that was ticking through mana too. Don't get me wrong; he'd end up regenerating mana at a quick rate depending on what he has in his stash and whatever buffs he ends up acquiring as the match were to go on. But you have to like straight up hold him down. If you're orc, you end up getting raiders straight and snare him. You have to ensnare him the whole time. If you're humans, you have to use Mountain King. You know, one of those things.
Demon Hunter is a fix to a problem in that,
and it gets complicated in the middle of battles.
Do not do a good job of exchanging hits with opponents. Most other races have summons or have baseline heroes or units that make it difficult for the demon to trade blows, for the Night Elf heroes to trade blows. When we look at the other 3 elf heroes, they are all kind of specialists in what they do.
Yeah.
And demon is the easiest to play. He's very powerful. He's good mid-game, early game, and late game. I think he's a tier A. He's strong.
He's getting him tier A. I said tier S.
Strongest hero. Keeper of the Grove.
Keeper of the Grove is B tier, in my opinion. I'm going to say B tier. I think Grubby might put him in an A tier as well. I like the way how he has that root, the vine, where he could ensnare someone as they're trying to run away and end up sucking life from them as well. His ultimate, where it's all healing, heals every unit around. It's pretty good. You don't usually get to see games go that far with him. He also has that ability where he's able to turn trees into other units that he could start creeping with right away if he wanted to. Kind of like the Seer with the dire wolves. He has the trees that you're able to do, but the one thing that's different is you could summon other trees and your trees won't go down like how the dire wolves would. So you could actually have 4 or 6 little trees running around like from rip, and they're pretty tough too. Like they could tank some damage. They're pretty, like, he's a pretty good hero. I'd still give him a B. Grubby might give him an A or a B.
Oh, and Immolation nowadays is a creeping accelerant. You can creep faster with it, but it is incredibly risky because it depletes your Moonwell super fast, so you become vulnerable to harass. Keeper of the Grove. A very potentially...
Give me 1 sec. Pardon me. Jeez. One of those.
Controversial hero. The hero with the largest lockdown period in the game. Entangle can last... I'm not exactly sure where it is at right now in the balancing of things, but I believe for most of Warcraft history, level 3 Entangle took 48 seconds. That means if you have no Dispel and you have a Tauren, that Tauren is not going to fight the rest of the fight. Right? Keeper of the Grove has the worst aura in the game in Thorns, together with Vampiric Aura. Thorns is also the only aura that cannot be found in item form, unlike everything else as far as I know. And
I forget what his aura does, but he has a really good aura because I'll end up getting his aura too after I end up getting the trees, where you could end up using the trees as I was explaining before. Get those, then get the aura.
And that does make it special.
I think it buffs
Thorn's
life.
Best application is when playing Keeper into Panda or Keeper into Demon with Bears and Dryads, and when you're playing against Orc. Orc tends to counter with Grunt, Raider, Kodo, and maybe Walkers against Bear Dryad, and usually Orc plays Blademaster against Night Elf. So Thorns will actually do a lot of damage back to the Orc army. That's why it is not useless. Force of Nature is a creeping accelerant because you can create summons, you have early army, and they can help you to creep many things. It also tanks, it's also a scout that can go in many different directions. Force of Nature receives a buff from trees, Nature's Blessing. They get the armor and the movement speed. So then they become even a lot better.
Armor, movement speed, nice.
You can have up to 4 summons with a single cast, which makes it expensive to dispel.
So when he ends up getting the summons all the way up, you're able to summon 4 at one time. And then if you wanted to, you could wait, you could get another 4 if they didn't already get clobbered by your opponent or any kind of creeps.
Oh, for many dispellers.
Dispel
and then
gets rid
can
of
be
them.
a hero focusing tool or a unit pick-off tool. Keeper of the Grove is best known for his ability to create map control via bonus units and lockdown. Once Keeper is level 3, every race must hide their units. Any fiends that are made must stay at home. Any grunts or headhunters that are made must stay at home, lest you risk losing all of them one by one to one entangle and the next and the next. So he is a good map control hero. He's a great starting hero. He's a great second hero. And he's also had purpose as a third hero for Night Elf, where the Night Elf is facing Mass Raider hit and run. Trading a Night Elf Town Portal scroll for an Orcish speed scroll has been a very successful strategy during many different metas of Warcraft 3. And running away and getting some units cycloned forces the Night Elf to stay until Cyclone drops the unit again. But entangle Staff of Preservation your Keeper home and then do an entangle on Raiders, that's a guaranteed kill once the army TP's in. So it's really useful as a third hero. I think Keeper of the Grove is also still being used from time to time as a starting hero. Definitely against Orc, it's still a top tier hero. But I cannot really put him in tier A. I think Keeper is just slightly worse than Demon Hunter right now in his current form. He's very useful. He's probably much better than Dreadlord, who might actually be in tier C and Cryptlord in tier D. I think this actually makes more sense. Because I think he deserves his own category under these guys, but definitely above Dreadlord. I'm retconning the rest of the list, yeah. So he's B, Dreadlord is C, and Cryptlord is D. Then, Warden. Warden is an interesting one.
So, for me, Warden's alright. The poison that she has, you're able to start creeping right away with that. She has the Fed Knives, which is pretty cool, AoE damage. All in all, she's an alright hero. You have to get her to level 6. So it's like situational. You have to go her first if you want her to get to level 6. Me, myself, I would give her an A. Grubby might give her an A or a B.
Warden needs game-long scaling.
Yeah.
By that I mean, she becomes really weak when she falls behind. She must scale at a similar or preferably greater, or preferably much greater rate than the opponent. It is more okay for her to face multiple low-level heroes than one hero that's higher level than her. She wants to be multiple levels higher generally than opponents, because her usefulness with Shadow Strike and Blink relies on being able to kill units, stick to a unit and kill it. She hunts one target down. Fan of Knives is a different playstyle that also has its place, but again, Fan of Knives is best the sooner you get it high level. It's really not very good to play 20 minutes without harassing workers and then to finally get level 2 or 3 Fan of Knives and start killing workers, because by that time you may already have lost, the opponent may not care losing workers because they're gonna win the next fight and then you're dead. Right? So Warden is 99.99% of the time played as a first hero.
Yeah.
That means you're not going Demon or Keeper first. That means that in order to actually go for her first, you need to identify a situation, something you know about an opponent, you need to identify something you know about the map.
It's mostly the map and or depending on what other faction you're going against, right? Because like against Orc, you could go her first if you wanted to. Undead, you could go her first too.
Or maybe you're extremely skilled and practiced with her. You need a very specific creep route with her in order to get her high level without getting harassed. She's less efficient by far than Demon Hunter with Moonwells, because mana costs 4 times as much as health from Moonwells, And although she's an agility hero, she has much worse agility scaling and attack time than Demon Hunter. Attack time is a hidden attack speed stat, which helps, determines how fast units attack. So her attack time is much worse than Demon. Her scaling of agility is worse. She won't attack as many times, basically. And she needs mana way more than every other hero in the game, pretty much.
Yes.
Except maybe Priestess. Oh no. She needs mana way more than every other hero in the game. Period. She's pretty much completely a mana using hero. And that makes her vulnerable. It makes her sometimes unreliable. It makes her risky. When played and executed very well, she can feel like a tier S in the right meta. She can feel like a tier A. But with all the conditions placed upon her being good, I'm gonna have to put her either in tier C or B, and I think it has to be C. Probably the top of C.
Damn.
She is viable when you're godlike.
Knocked her all the way down to tier
Right?
C, dog.
You have to be very good at her. Your creep route has to be figured out. The opponent needs to not be doing some kind of creep disruption special tech like repair trick or wake up your Ancient of War trick. It just ends the game for her. With Warden, you're rushing level 3, you're rushing level 5, you're rushing level 6. It's got to work out.
As
And then
fast as
finally, the
possible.
Priestess of the Moon.
Yo, I would put her S tier. I used to use her in ROC. This was the hero that I would use all the time with Night Elf. I would go mass archers into air with dryads and bears. I would go her first, or I would go Demon Hunter first, depending, and then her second. But a good, like, probably about 80% of the time, I was choosing her because her Starfall. I was getting her up to level 6 so I could do the Starfall and just take out bases. And then I had, like, a complete army behind me that was good to go. I had my bears to tank a bunch of stuff for me. I had my air, and then I also had my ground units, which sometimes I would go huntresses. I'd get like 4 to 5 huntresses, probably about 6 archers, turn those into air, and then maybe about 4 bears, some stuff like that sometimes. Or I'd mix it up and I'd have air but extra archers because I'm boosting for air, so like mass archer into bear just for the extra defense. But because her ability, her aura to increase the attack and the attack rate of arrows, right? There was that. She has the owl that she could send and perch onto trees. That's like a scout and whatever. And then she also has her arrow that you can auto cast that does quite a bit of damage. And Starfall was like, it's one of the dopest animations for an ultimate, but the damage it does because it hits units and it also hits buildings at the same time. It does a lot of damage. And it's funny that he's throwing it into D. I know his wife plays Night Elf and she's keen on using the Priestess of the Moon. But let's see what he has to say about it. He's throwing it right into D. For me, it's an S tier.
Tier D. Priestess of the Moon thematically makes so much sense. She gives an attack speed and an attack damage buff to all ranged units. And Night Elf has so many ranged units. The only melee in fact that they have are Demon, Warden, Hippogriff, Mountain Giant, and Bear. And Hippogriffs are very situational, Mountain Giants are very situational, Bears are a staple unit, and when you go for Priestess, you're generally not getting her to buff keeper damage. So, Priestess buffs range damage. There are a lot of units that are ranged, including Huntress, Archer, Dryad, Hippogriff Rider, Fairy Dragon, Chimera. I find that Priestess of the Moon, because she gives a percentage damage bonus with True Shot, is most useful for the biggest range damage there is, which is Chimera and Archer. Right? So generally you get her to buff chimps or archers. And that is very powerful. Archers do a lot of damage. But she is just like an archer herself as well.
That's a fact. She is like really squishy. She could be squishy. Defense is highly recommended, anywhere between 3 to 4 slots for defense for her to be tanky enough to get her to level 6 if you're doing a 1v1. If you were to even make it to level 6, 4v4s, 3v3s is where she shines. I'm not gonna lie.
She is a great luxury addition for mass archer builds.
Yeah.
And mass archer builds have been extremely viable throughout many different lifespans of Warcraft 3. Very many different metas of Warcraft 3. We have seen mass archer. Most recently, the mass archer meta against human with Keeper, Naga, Priestess in 2021. Nice. 3 Orbs of Venom, mass archer, rushing, and then beating knights with that. Right? We've seen Priestess 3rd against Orc with the Keeper, Alchemist, Priestess. 1 base style. You open with 3 to 5 Huntresses, then Mass Archer Tier 3 with Priestess 3rd. It definitely feels strong when used properly. Probably more useful than Crypt.
I actually have a hero theory that would make her, I feel in Grubby's eyes, an S class. If you were to get her first, and then where is it? There's a couple other archer heroes that you're able to get from the shop. And if you were to get them and like synergy.
Lord in her niche.
I'm going to try it out.
But she's she is outclassed by so much utility from other heroes that I cannot put her over anyone else. And if I can't put her over anyone else, then I must put her under everyone else. Keep in mind,
Yo, Epic, what's going on, homie? Happy Monday, happy Monday. It's Victoria Day here in Canada. We're chilling, reacting to a Grubby tier list. This was the first tier list that he did for Warcraft 3. Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate you, homie. If you guys are enjoying the stream, feel free to leave a like, sub, all that good stuff. We're getting back into it, though.
I don't think D is useless, but she is D. That's Night Elf. Let's move on to Tavern heroes. No, human. Let's move on to human heroes. Alright, before we go on to human, a brief note on ultimate abilities. Tranquility is one of the only ults that is extremely good to use outside of combat.
Yeah.
As well as inside of combat. Tranquility is definitely top tier and it helps keep her quite a bit as well. Starfall is an in-combat ability only that damages buildings and units. It's pretty cool. It's definitely very beautiful. My wife thinks Starfall is the most beautiful ability in the game. She loves Priestess of the Moon. And we'll actually go Demon Priestess, even though I say Priestess is not a good second hero. But don't argue with the wifey. Warden ultimate ability is actually key for her playstyle of Mass Fan of Knives Blink Harass against human. Then you make the Avatar of Vengeance and you end up continuing the Harass game. I have a very cool level 10 Warden game I played recently. Bing! That you should check out if you're interested to see some Warden use. Now, let's...
His editor didn't put it up, man. Awkward.
move on to human.
I'll take human race.
We're gonna start with Paladin.
For me, oh man, fuck it. Paladin is a paladin. He heals. He heals other units. Yeah, pretty much that's what he does. He heals other units. Yeah. His aura, I think, gives a boost for defense and attack speed. His ultimate, again, is for health. Yeah. And then he has the invulnerability ability that he's able to use where you can't really touch him. Right, for like 60 seconds. You aren't able to hit him. He's like a C tier for me. I think Grubby will put him in a B tier.
Paladin. Where will I place Paladin? The defender of the holy light.
He's a good tank too. He's tanky.
Paladin offers devotion aura, which was buffed from 1 armor to 1.
That's it. Devotion armor.
1.5 per level. Really strong. A hero that can on demand for just 25 mana turn completely invincible, smiting with great impunity with his hammer. And then for just 65 mana, he has a rather slow casting animation heal that heals 100, 200, and 300. Nope, it heals 200, 400, and 600. Or can be used to deal 1, 2, and 300 damage on undeads. Paladin is the Antichrist to the Death Knight. Or perhaps I should start that sentence opposite. Death Knight is the Antichrist to the Holy Paladin. Where is Paladin? He is a great support hero. We have seen Paladin first builds sometimes. By far the greatest player to ever do Paladin first and make it work at the highest of levels is the Swedish player Thorzine. Marcus Eklöf is the best Paladin first user ever, I find. And the way that he proved that is by using Pala first strategies to win 2 out of 5 maps against Happy, the greatest undead player to ever live. And that is impressive. But outside of those, Paladin first is pretty much just a ladder strategy right now that doesn't get played by any of the top human players. Now, Europe always loved Pala first more than Asia, and Europe has produced many great players outside of Asia.
Get that editing.
And so the fact that Asia is now dominant in Warcraft 3 competitive scene, with China and Korea being the 2 dominant countries, does mean that we are less likely to see Paladin even if it were viable right now. Is it viable to go Pala first? I can't prove it. My human isn't good enough, and the Asians aren't playing it. So in that sense, Pala first is off the table. Pala second is extremely rare.
Yeah.
Pala third is iconic and strong. But is it
because you get his
crucial?
You get his
Could
aura.
you replace Pala third by Alchemist to come up with healing that is still relevant? I think so sometimes. I think Paladin is good, but I cannot place him in tier S, ubiquitous. I cannot place him in tier A, so good. I think he's a tier B. He's very strong.
I thought he was going to put him tier B.
He comes out third, which
I'd put him tier C. That's just me though. I'm not too keen on using humans, to be honest with you.
means you may not get there. You may not get to tier 3. The game could end before that. There's going to be many games where he's not there. He doesn't come out as a first or a second. He's somewhat replaceable by alternatives. You're sometimes going to want someone else. Nice hero. Perfectly average. It works. Have you lost your mind, Grubby? Have I? Those of you with the will to place Paladin in tier B, follow me. The rest of you, get out of my kitchen. Anyway, next, Blood Mage.
Blood Mage is alright. He's circumstantial too. Like, for his abilities, he should be picked all the time. He's really good. Like, he ends up getting the Phoenix at level 6, which reincarnates, right? Which is like dope AF. He also has that fire attack, does AoE damage. You do damage to units and buildings, and it can also destroy trees to get trees out of your way if you need to like build a path, trying to maneuver your way around, or like throw some towers behind enemy lines where they don't notice it until it's too late. Also for taking out home bases and stuff like that. His mana burn is actually pretty dope. And then he has this other attack, it's almost like a feint attack for bionic units. Like biological units, so living units. It like turns them invisible, makes it so that they don't want to attack and they walk away, but you're still able to attack them. It kind of makes them faint too. Not like in Pokemon faint, as in transparent a little bit. We've seen it used, but he's like a tier B in my opinion, because so back in the day, I think it was like 2012, 2014, something like that, in between those years, there was a strat for human for 1v1s where you go two barracks and you go him and you go straight footies and you just straight up go for their home base and take it out. And it was pretty dope. It worked. I utilized it quite a bit back in the day. But nowadays you don't really see that.
How can you even consider that? Right, Blood Mage. Blood Mage is the most tier S hero that I've ever seen that must nonetheless be placed in tier B or C. It's very strange. If
I would switch these two. Luther, go down there. Blood Mage could go up here.
sometimes people ask me, who is the most underrated hero? And then I have to ask, well, how do you rate the heroes? Make your tier list and I'll judge. Then I'll tell you which one is underrated. So I always dodge the question because I don't know how you rate it. I know how I rate it. So what's underrated? Where's the poll of 10,000 raters, right? So I don't know. But I can only answer the question authentically by saying Blood Mage. He's always the most underrated hero. He's so broken anytime he comes out. Siphon mana, has only 10 mana cost or something, can steal dozens or...
Realistically, I'd actually take him and put him A. Because I would be able to utilize him, I feel. Don't get me wrong, sometimes, like, when you first get him until he's level 3, he's pretty squishy. Get him up to level 5, you're taking out bases. It's pretty sick. On top of, like, whatever army it is that you're running with, because by that time you should have a second hero. And if you go on Blood Mage, you usually end up, like, if you were to go Blood Mage first, you could go Luther second, or you could go, you go to the shop and you get one of the shop heroes. Like Tinker.
Or hundreds of mana. It has almost no cooldown, almost no mana cost. Its breaking range is greater than its starting cast range, which means the moment you are starting to get sucked, even if you run away, the sucking continues for some time. You need to preemptively start running when you feel the suck coming out, and that's a big problem, right? Then there's Banish, which is one of the coolest spells in the game. Very creative. Banish allows you to stop a unit from doing physical attacks, because it makes them also not able to be attacked by physical attacks. So that's a double-edged sword. Now. It's either good for an opponent, even though you debuff them, or it's bad for you, even though you protect yourself. So it's definitely always a double-edged sword.
Maybe just on the story, on the campaign.
That target is also extra vulnerable to magic damage, which means you can use it offensively together with Coil, together with Stormbolt, and Holy Light if it's against Undead. Or you can use it to on yourself to save yourself from physical attacks, but suddenly you die to Coil Nova. So everything he does has a kind of a downside, right, with Banish. But it is very cool because it has a couple of unique implementations as well. Banish is the only thing that can dispel ensnare. So if there's an ensnare on the Dragonhawk and I'm attacking the Dragonhawk, they can banish it and the ensnare disappears and the unit just goes up into the sky again, which is pretty crazy. Banish on a unit prevents... Banish on Batrider prevents Batrider from being able to use unstable concoction.
Oh shit. So
in a battle of Griffins versus Bats are flying in, you can try to rapid fire banish a couple of Batriders and they won't explode. And there's more. There's more you can do with Banish. It's really cool. Unit is very slow, so you can use it as a pseudo surrounding skill. And then there's Flame Strike. 135 mana. Very similar to Blizzard. It's actually a slightly larger area. The damage is more front-loaded. There is a casting channel time of about 3/4 of a second, I think. If Flame Strike gets interrupted during the casting time, mana is still deducted, 135. Yeah. But
that's a downside. If he gets attacked and you end up moving him in the middle of that flame attack, the flame attack stops as he runs away and you lose all your mana. And it's like, bruh. Like, that's happened to me before when I first started doing those rushes back in the day, 2012, 2014, when I was using human for 1v1s. Yeah, nah, man, that happened to me a bit at the beginning.
The Flame Strike doesn't trigger. There is the sound and the animation that begins. You see the green ground starting to gather, but the flame never materializes. As far as I know, Flame Strike is the only spell in the game that can consume mana but do nothing. Like, to be interrupted mid-cast. Because if I see a Stormbolt beginning and I hex the MK, mana will either not be spent or the hammer already left his hands, and it's gonna work. Flame Strike is the only one that you can spend and it doesn't do anything. And then there's Phoenix, his ultimate ability. It is fantastic if you can get there. It's a reanimating magic bird with great range. It has a form of
awesome
area of
fire
effect
damage
around
too.
itself, a kind of aura. It's not exactly an aura. It's more like StarCraft carrier attacks with interceptors, but it's very cool, and then has a very long range magic damage attack. Super cool heroic ability. We have seen some Blood Mage first, even in pro play. It's also one of the most popular meme heroes to begin with, because Phoenix is so cool and he's so angry and there's so much fire and there's so much blood, and even that wouldn't be enough blood, and the whole thing should be covered in blood. And yeah, Carl. Where do we place Carl? We see some first hero Blood Mage. We see him as second sometimes. We see him as third sometimes.
I put him
but
at
mostly we don't see him at all. Pretty much most people don't play him much. But we do see him sometimes. And I think we probably see him about as often as Dreadlord. I think he's tier C. Maybe B? It might be a B. Because his siphon is so freaking broken.
It is.
But you don't make him that often. I think C or maybe. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Maybe B. Yeah. I think it's C or B. Note that this tier list is pretty much for one-on-one, as I think it is the primary game mode for Warcraft 3 that I play and know about. Right? I have also played professional 2-on-2. I've played casual 4-on-4. That has never been professional. I think that's the most important tier list part. But yeah, he gets better in team play, but I'm not rating them for that. Not sure whether I should put him in B or C. It's either the top of C or the bottom of B.
I'm telling you, man. I'd end up putting him A, like bottom rung of A. He's having a hard time trying to pick what he feels that he should go in between B and C. I said he would pick B, but he's having a hard time here.
I'm gonna place him here. He is actually quite good against Warden and Panda. I see him mostly as a counter hero, and I believe counter heroes should be in C. C for counter. Okay, next, Mountain King. Where does
Mountain King is S tier. S tier. His ultimate turns into a giant mountain giant. Straight up, made of iron, holds it down, straight, like, just kills it. He has his own war stomp kind of thing where he hits the ground, stuns enemies. His passive is increase attack speed and increase attack rating, I'm pretty sure, overall. And then he has the other thing where he throws his mallet like he was Thor. You know what I mean? Throws that shit. Stuns them, holds them in like an area for a second or two. You could actually maneuver units all the way around and box that unit in if it's a hero, and then just start hammering away and make them TP if they have a TP. If they don't have a TP, you just muck their hero right away. And then yeah, tier S for me. Grubby, I think he'll throw it in tier S too, man.
Mountain King go? A reliable, high damage.
Might put him in tier A, but like he's tier S.
That can stun and kill units. It can stun and disable heroes. Thunderclap has fantastic area of effect, damage, and slow. Right? It does a attack speed slow. It does a movement speed slow. It is uncapped in how many it can hit, only limited by the area. Then his passive is a bash, which is a good DPS increase. Not as much as Critical Strike, but not as little either as Pandaren Brewmaster crit. It's pretty good. And it stuns people, which means it's an interrupt of channels, which just completely removes probably 1/5 of ultimates in the game. And he's tanky. He's tanky, he's reliable, he's trusty, he's key.
He's one of my
Mountain
favorites.
King is a great first hero, he is a great second hero, and we have very sometimes seen him as a third. And not because he's a bad third, but because he's so good that you take him first or second almost always. That means he's either a tier S or a tier A. And I think he is not as key for the race.
Ooh.
There are alternatives. I cannot
Threw him in an
justify
A.
putting him in tier S. I think he's tier A. Look, here's why. You can go Manta King second. In those same situations, you can often make a good case for Naga second,
Yeah.
Pandaren Brewmaster second, Alchemist second, Beastmaster second. Manta King has been outpicked by at least 4 Tavern heroes during many long periods of Warcraft 3 meta. If he was so good, then why were players favoring Firelord, Alchemist, Beastmaster, Naga or Panda over him so many times? Checkmate.
I see.
So he's tier A. Very, very good.
I still
Very,
throw him
very
in tier
good.
S.
He's the closest to be tier S. He's close to be tier S, but I think he's an A. Okay, final human hero. No question.
Yeah, he's tier S. Archmage, tier S. Water elements, blizzard, teleport to town, plus his aura that regenerates mana. Yeah, like, I usually start with him, Archmage, and then I'll go into Mountain King. And then I'll usually end up going to the shop, and I'll pick someone else, usually Naga.
Questions asked. You all know it was coming. Tier S, obviously. Obviously,
He's the GOAT.
Archmage.
He's the best.
right? He's got water elemental.
For human,
Archmage can have
water
up to
element,
3 water
start creeping right
elementals
away.
for a short period of time. That's 375 mana worth of summons on the field. They are a ranged unit, which means that they cover an area of anti-air, meaning that they are a bridge to preparing for air before you get more anti-air out. Get surprised by Wind Riders as a Pala, Mountain King, or Blood Mage, and you pretty much just die. If you're mass casters like Sorceress, Priest, Breaker, if you did a fast expansion and you don't have a mercenary camp, and your first tower isn't ready, and Gargs or Wind Riders come in, you just lose instantly. Boom. But Archmage has a ranged attack, Water Elementals have a ranged attack, and because of that, it buys time. You can defend the initial air units, and now you can start making rifles, siege engines with barrage, flying machines with flag cannon or without, dragon hogs with aerial shackles. It buys time, right? It's a damage sponge, it's a tank, the water elemental. They deal damage, they're bonus units. Then there's Blizzard. Blizzard is quite good, right? Blizzard is an area of
AoE
effect
damage of
damage
Blizzard
channel
is insane.
that is
So, like, back at ROC, before we had all these side heroes and stuff like that, back at ROC, the most common strat that people would do in 1v1s with humans was go Archmage, Blizzard, run all the way over to the opponent's base, and Blizzard where their peons or peasants were collecting gold, just to interrupt a gold mine. And it would usually end up taking out maybe one and damaging the rest, as he would stand there, end up shooting projectiles from his range, shooting fireballs because he's a wizard, you know, and like killing off at least 3 peasants, peons, whatever it is that's gathering gold for you, right? And then for Night Elf, he would attack all the wisps that were like gathering wood. He wouldn't really go for the gold mine due to all of them are like connected to it. You can't pick them off individually. You would have to go for the whole gold mine, which I've seen done. They end up doing the whole gold mine. It happens every once in a while. I've mostly seen them go for the wisps that are on the woods, because those ones could come and just detonate on him and drain all his magic. On top of, if he ends up already having a water element out, they can deploy on that as well, and pretty much it's gone. It'd be gone right away. But yeah, S tier, agreed.
excellent at sieging down enemy tower lines from out of range of the
AoE
towers. The
damage is
Archmage can
nuts.
channel Blizzard and probably hit like 3 towers at the same time. He can harass worker lines with Zeppelin after fast expanding in order to slow down your expansion. It is a way of pivoting into a new skill build after enemy gets too much dispel, and they start removing all your water elementals. You start getting Blizzard with Thunderclap or Blizzard with Drunken Haze. You start blizzarding grunts, raiders, and Druids of the Claw, or maybe even Ghouls. So those are two very good abilities. But perhaps the skill that makes Archmage most ubiquitous, most unmissable, most inimitable is Brilliance Aura. Brilliance Aura did receive a nerf a couple of years ago, which is very recent by Warcraft 3 history, and it is probably deserved. Brilliance Aura gives mana regeneration to every unit and hero in your race. It is so unmissable that you cannot consider going double Arcane Sanctum unless you have an Archmage, either first or second. You must have Archmage to enable Sanctum builds. That's why when it's Manticing first, it's often followed up with a Paladin and then a Blood Mage.
Yeah.
If you go for that build, you pretty much don't go Sanctum. It's all Barracks and Workshop. Barracks and Griffin Aviary. You might do a Sanctum for 2 Spellbreakers, but really you end up usually regretting it, even if you go 2 Priests, because in a minute or 2 from now, they have no mana anymore. And they will never have mana. Even though Priest upgrades end up offering bonus mana regeneration to the unit, that's still usually not enough to end up getting everything you want out of those units. So the Archmage enables an entire building. Breakers, Sorcerers, and Priest. And those 3 units happen to be among the best in the human race.
Yeah.
Perhaps not in every matchup as much, but in Human Mirror, Priest and Breakers are key. Against Orc, they're key. Against Night Elf, it's kind of depending how you play the game.
Against Undead. I've seen that so many times.
We don't see
Undead.
Sanctum play all that much, which is actually why sometimes you can try to skip the
Breakers,
Archmage
Priests.
and play Manticing instead. Right? But Archmage is undoubtedly a tier S. His level 6 is pretty cool. Mass Teleportation. Together with Tranquility, the most useful ultimate outside of fights. Okay, next up. Tavern Heroes. We have 8 in all. I'll be ranking these heroes not just relative to their relative to the racial picks that you have. When I think of rating a Lich, I think compared to DK, compared to Cryptlord, compared to Dreadlord, and the Tavern options. The Tavern.
So for the Tavern Heroes, I don't know too much about them, so I'm going to be paying close attention to what he says. I know a little bit about a couple of them, because I use specific ones once in a while, like back in the day in ROC I'd use Tinker, just because, and you would get them first, and you would use them as a rush, and there wasn't too much of a cooldown while, like, all you needed was your Altar of Storms and to be in the middle at the tavern that you could purchase, right? You end up purchasing Tinker, go over to the other base, you throw his mechanical machine down where it pumps out little units and just pigs people off, right? They end up getting overwhelmed because by that point, depending on what race you are, you already have units coming in to back your hero.
Heroes have to be rated alongside with the usefulness in mind that they can provide to any of the 4 races. And because Tavern Heroes are always available on demand, they carry a very special, unique advantage. First, know this about Tavern Heroes. They can only be hired on maps with taverns, which in the current meta of Warcraft 3 is literally every single map has a tavern. So we got that out of the way. Tavern Heroes cost 35 lumber more than Altar Heroes. And I believe...
I wonder why they cost 35 more lumber.
Maybe they cost 25 gold more as well, or perhaps I think it's still the same gold as Altar Heroes. But anyway, they cost 35 lumber more than Altar Heroes, which is sometimes a significant cost that you may be able to or not able to pay based on the situation. Right? Tavern Heroes are trained instantly. Normal heroes train over, I believe, 65 or 55 seconds. So let's...
I guess that's why. Because it's instant cast right away. They just pop out from the tavern.
Say about a minute. So if a normal hero takes a minute, and this is instant, that's really useful. These heroes start in the middle of the map at the tavern. That means that that's halfway to your opponent's base already. The average orc peon travel time from one main base to another I tested it once in the meta of 2009. The shortest rush distance for a peon from touching one Great Hall to the enemy Great Hall was Echo Isles with 42 or 48 seconds. And the longest was Terran's Stand with 65 seconds. Peons are slower than heroes, but whole armies move slower than the average army speed because you always have to wait, they block each other. So in short, I can say that the average rush distance from one base to the other is about a minute or maybe about 50 seconds. That means that reaching the halfway point takes about 20, 25, maybe 25 seconds. That means that with the 60 seconds, 25 gold more than an altar. Okay, so it's 25 gold, 35 lumber. The 60 seconds that they don't need to be made and the 25 seconds they don't need to travel, they can get to an enemy base 85 seconds faster than any altar hero that comes out second.
Damn.
The first Tavern hero is delayed.
Just like
artificially
half
by
the
Blizzard
time, right?
In the Tavern, so you can't...
Half the time if you're getting a Tavern hero, and especially if they have an altar and then they're going to altar hero.
rush too early, like at minute 1. So as a second or third hero, they're 85 seconds faster than altar heroes, and that's a pretty big advantage.
Huge advantage.
And they train instantly, so they can immediately start fighting if you're next to the tavern. Okay, tavern heroes, in order for them to be used, they need to be better than the racial equivalent. You see where I place orc heroes, tier S and tier A. Orc never uses tavern heroes, almost ever. The only tavern heroes that orc pretty much uses are between 2004 to 2010. Orc was using Blade, Shadow, and an Alchemist third, but only against human, only when human went Mountain King Pala, and when they went Fast Expo, and when they went Triple Griffin Aviary, which was a build that Sky developed in 2005.
Super situational.
Or, 2005. And it was used until 2010, but it doesn't get used from 2020 to 2024 all that much anymore. So we don't see Alchemist anymore. We also never see Blade first against human anymore. It's all Farseer. So the only niche case where Orc hires Alchemist is gone for multiple reasons. So they never go for it anymore. We see Orc never getting Alchemist first or second. So Orc doesn't use Alchemist. And you'll find that many of the other heroes do not get used by Orc either, just because their own heroes are so good and crucial. So if Orc doesn't use Tavern heroes, who does? Well, in fact, the only Orc hero for the Tavern that gets used right now is Firelord as a second. And it's not because he's good. I think Firelord is going to rank pretty low. But it's because he's especially good at one small part of the game.
It's good at
Undead
rushing.
barely uses Tavern heroes because Death Coil is so integral to the Undead race, and Coil can only be cast on Undead heroes. The only Undead Tavern heroes are Dark Ranger and Pitlord, so the other 6 are really hard to justify for Undead.
Yeah, realistically, because you end up going her for your third, you need her, or you could go him. Usually it's her for the ranged, and then she also has what is it? D-spell.
As they cannot be healed
like an AoE
easily
D-spell.
at all. Not with Coil anyway. Human uses a lot of Tavern heroes. Their Brilliance aura enables any Tavern hero to shine, even if they have a problematic relationship with mana. And Night Elf uses Tavern heroes a lot. First of all, they don't have any tier S heroes, and even though they only have a single tier A hero, the rest is in B or lower because of that. And that means that any Tavern hero that may be tier B or higher, or even if it's tier C, may still be picked up by Night Elf, not because they're generally stronger, but because they're stronger in certain situations. So you pick them up as you see the strategy your opponent is gunning for. So let's start ranking them. Beastmaster
Beastmaster is a really good hero. I've used this hero quite a bit. He has a bear that can tank. He has a boar that has quills. He has a thunderhawk, which is really dope. And oh man, what else does he have? And he has a third one plus. you could use him from beginning, middle to end, essentially. So he can rush if you want him to rush. He could CC, creep, and counter. He could counter pretty well as well. You could go him first. You could go him second. You could even go him third if you wanted to. You can utilize him. He's pretty good. Like overall, he's a good hero to use. I would give him an A tier because I would use him. And he's saying that Orc doesn't really pick. Orc will pick Beastmaster if need be, because usually it will be Farseer Beastmaster, or you go Beastmaster Witch Doctor into Farseer, or you end up doing Shaman Chieftain.
Had his moment. In 2004, Beastmaster was one of the baddest dogs in town. You would go Beast first as Night Elf, double Ancient of War Mass Huntress. You would start creeping.
Yeah, that's what made it famous. Beastmaster famous, real quick, is as he was saying, back to 2004. I remember seeing it. I remember seeing it on the World Cyber Games, and it was insane. It was crazy. One of the craziest matchups I've ever seen. If you guys want to check that out, I'd suggest check it out. Look up the 2004 World Cyber Games.
Go Beast first as Night Elf, double Ancient of War Mass Huntress. You would start creeping 4 to 6 orange camps as Mass Huntress gave you map control. The only problem is, Mass Huntress was kind of like training a tribe of Neanderthals to fight with stone axes and stone shields. Very scary if you're a gamer. Cannot defeat Neanderthals. But gamers eventually grow up, then they go study, they learn about nuclear warfare, and suddenly the Neanderthals aren't so scary anymore, and now they're extinct. The only problem was, Beastmaster Mass Huntress, although they would eventually become obsolete against air units, Dispel, etc., they would pick up so many summons from all these orange camps that they used to creep on Twisted Meadows that they could basically kill you before you could launch the nuke. The enemy can't.
Realistically, they'd end up running into your base while you still have a level 1 hero. He'd already be level 3 going on a level 4.
Fire a nuke when you injure their hand. So Beastmaster was very oppressive in 2004. And he was also a fantastic hero as a second hero all the way from 2004 to 2010. Demon Beastmaster against Orc, Archmage Beastmaster against Orc. Pretty much everyone was abusing Beastmaster against Orc as a second hero, and he was very good. And we saw some Beast first play in 2004 as well. Beast third, never really been a thing. And in the current day of Warcraft 3, we pretty much don't see him at all anymore. As a first, as a second, or as a third. So I'm going to place him in tier C. I think he's still brimming with excitement at the thought of being used again. He's definitely still more useful than...
I'd put him tier A, man. He's a tier A. Don't put him in C, bro. Put him in A, dog.
Dreadlord and Priestess on average. But you actually may see him less than Priestess, just because there might not be a single niche situation where he is more useful than someone else. He used to be more useful than Demon or Keeper. That's not the case anymore. Alchemist. Where to rank?
So, like, Alchemist, I never really used Alchemist. I don't know any of his abilities. I'm going to have to shut up and listen to what Grubby's going to tell us, and I'll make my assessment off of what I hear. And then I think he's going to end up putting him into B tier.
Rank Alchemist. Alchemist is not used by Orc. He gets used an insane amount by Night Elf in Keeper Alchemist against Orc. Massing Huntresses and Archers is very strong, but you get healing problems. With Alchemist, you take those problems away.
So Alchemist does healing.
Healing Spray. Acid Bomb is also a great damage multiplier for Archers and Huntresses. And they will leave the enemy front line in tatters. We don't see Keeper Alchemist being used anymore in Night Elf Mirror. In 2020 we were, but that time is gone. No more Keeper Alchemy in Mirror. There was Keeper Alchemy against Human as well, and against Undead. no longer really valid. We don't see him all that much. So right now, Alchemist use is really only limited to second hero against Orc for Elf. We see some Archmage Alchemist against Panda first from Night Elf. We see some Archmage Alchemist against Warden first from Night Elf, providing some area of effect healing that can be quite useful. We also see some...
So essentially it's a healing hero. I'd put it in C. Because I don't use it, but it sounds a lot better. Well, like, I'd put it in D. I would put it in D. I don't use the hero. I don't use it at all. I'd put it in D.
Death Knight Lich Alchemist against Orc. Particularly when they play Focus style, which right now is Farseer Shadow, Fostech, Mass Wind Riders. Alchemist is melee, but as a melee, he's the only hero in the game that has a natural anti-air orb effect attack. So he can help attack he can help attack air.
Nice.
The Acid Bomb is fantastic against air as well, as it is a armor remover, an armor debuff, and it does damage over time. So it's fantastic against Wind Riders and against Dragon Hawks perhaps. So there's 3 races that actively use Alchemist right now. And that means that he really is quite useful. I'm gonna rate him in B tier.
Go and give him a B.
Oh, I only talked about Acid Bomb and Healing Spray. There's also Chemical Rage, which is a 25 mana attack speed and movement speed buff. Useful in a pinch. Not the reason you get him usually, but it's pretty cool. And his level 6... His level 6 is so good in FFA that people kill players that go Alchemist on site. People will team against you if you have Alchemist level 6 because they don't like getting their units sold to transmute. But in 1-on-1, transmute is of course rare. I have pretty much not seen it often in tournaments. Like, I don't think we've seen a whole lot of transmuting in tournaments, but very rarely there has been transmuting. Most notably, my BlizzCon finals against Zakard, the Pit Lord versus Alchemist game. That was pretty cool. But he's tier B. Okay, next. Tinker.
So Tinker, I already went over how he had that workshop and ends up like pumping out little units and shit that come out and like fuck shit up. It's pretty dope. He also has like a rocket launcher. Rocket launcher is actually pretty sick. It's like a heat-seeking missile or something like that. It's pretty dope. I forget his... he has a gear. I think it's like an increase in speed or something like that. I'm not 100%. Or it's something for mechanical units that he has. It's an aura that he has. And I think he has like a net or something.
Goblin Tinker, you've got 2 seconds to...
I'd give him an A tier just because I've used them before. I've never gotten them to level 6. I've only ever gotten them probably the highest to level 4, maybe 5. Because usually games would end by the time I'd get him to level 3 with the workshop. And just drop the workshop over by, like, raid the enemy base, drop the workshop over by their gold mine or over by their lumber. It all depends. Because if I see that they have a lot on lumber, I would drop it over by the lumber just to like just put an end to that, because they're probably going to be getting siege tanks is how it seemed to me at the time, because siege tanks were a big thing back then. Or you just see them pumping the gold, right? And it's not too many on lumber, you go for the gold. And it screws their economy up. It's really good. Really good.
You comply. Where does Tinker go? Tinker was the hero to get 3rd for Night Elf from 2005 to 2010 against Orc. Demon.
Now that's what I'm thinking about, the ROC 2000, 2002, 2004 that he's talking about.
And Beast Tinker. Tinker has one of the few summons that doesn't give experience. Factory is a summon and it gives experience when it's killed, but it creates free units. It creates free units. I hate free units. I think free units should not exist in RTS. Or at least I thought so until I did my video about free units a couple of days ago. And I realized free units are not per se the problem. It depends how they get implemented and how free they are, how strong they are, and what the drawbacks are. That's why Swarm Hosts suck, but Factory is actually pretty cool. The Clockwork Goblins can attack and move and explode and deal damage, but they don't give XP when killed. In fact, they explode and deal damage when killed. That makes them pretty annoying, but if you kill the Factory, which is pretty easy to kill usually, you dispense with the threat. Factory is quite strong. We don't see it all that much right now, but it definitely has had its period in Warcraft 3 meta, and for that reason I think Tinker is quite nice still. Engineering upgrade is just generic buffs to a lot of small little things, so I'm not really going to mention it too much. Then you've got rockets. Rockets, with their design niche right now in Warcraft 3, the main reason to get rockets is not to pepper enemy ground armies with damage, but it is an area of effect channel disruption.
Damn.
It is quite similar to Dark Ranger's Silence.
That's what it was, Dark Ranger's Silence.
But it actually stuns and does a harder interrupt of many things. Its most notable use is against human Dragonhogs. If you're an undead and you're playing DK Lich and you're going gargoyles against human, and the human counters with Dragonhog Riders, those Dragonhog Riders are going to counter guards with Aerial Shackles, which is a lockdown, a very long stun and damage dealer, kind of like Dismember from Pudge and Dota. You just start damaging and it just keeps going and going and stunning. Do one cast of Goblin, rockets on a large cluster of Dragonhogs, and you interrupt their shackle, putting it on cooldown, and now the guards are going to win easily. And that makes Tinker extremely useful in that situation. He is a counter hero right now, primarily. Orc doesn't make Tinker. Human has done some Archmage Tinker tower rushes against Orc. They've played some Tinker in Mirror sometimes, but is usually outclassed by Panda because their goal is to kill flying machines, which rockets now do achieve, but Fire Breath does it better. And so we've seen some human Tinker. We've not really seen a lot of Orc Tinker. Sometimes Focus used to play Tinker like a Blade Naga Tinker against Moon in 2009. Some kind of wonky tower rush build that he would only play against Moon and only on Turtle Rock. So it is so niche to barely even deserve mention, but it deserves mention because sometimes he beat Moon. And then Undead, like I said, only against Hawks. Human sometimes. Night Elf has played Tinker either as a first hero or as a third.
I've seen them play a first hero. Because, I used to run it first hero.
So everyone has this tiny brush of using the Tinker. He's a counter hero. I'm gonna put him above Dreadlord and Beastmaster.
I'm still disappointed about that.
Actually, I've not ranked most of them by orders. So if I don't mention it, doesn't mean Archmage is the worst tier S. But Goblin Tinker, I'm gonna rank him above, specifically above Dreadlord and Beastmaster. I think he has a purpose, but he's tier C for counter. Next, Firelord. Firelord is a useful...
So he's useful for rushes. And you have to get him to level 3 in order for his little minions to be durable enough. And for you to create, I think it's 4 or 5 by that time, you're able to have that's openly up and out running around with you that you could creep with. He's pretty tanky, I'm not gonna lie. Plus he has a ranged attack. Man, I haven't used him too much. I probably used him twice as a second hero. I used him once as a first hero to do a rush that somewhat worked, and then I used him right after, but as a second hero for support for my first hero, and by that time I got him up to level 3 just for his lava larvae.
Full Orc second hero, Farseer Firelord for a rush. Blade Firelord to defend the Farseer Firelord rush.
Mm-hmm.
We see some Firelord in Night Elf, very, very rarely. Undead doesn't really use him all that much, and Human doesn't use him all that much either right now. It was very popular to do Archmage Firelord Tower Rush against Orc from 2005 to 2010. But right now, I think it's ironically Orc that uses Firelord the most, and then Elf. Whereas Orc generally uses Tavern Heroes the least. And that's because with Farseer, Feral Spirits, and Firelord, you have two heroes that create a lot of summons. And they're both ranged units, ranged heroes, so they can attack and poke from afar. And that's great for rushing when enemy has base defenses. I'm gonna rank him in C. He's very situationally useful. He's more useful than these two. He's still known as
C,
the
even though I said
main
B.
rushing hero. He does rushing better than almost anyone.
Yeah.
As a first or as a second. But you
just straight up, you need him for a rush. That's all that unit is. That's all that hero is used for throughout Warcraft 3 that I've seen ever since they introduced it.
will pretty much never see him as a third. You'll pretty much never be happy with him when the game goes long. Alright, we're getting down to the final couple of heroes here of the Warcraft 3 heroes.
Next is Naga Sea Witch. So she has like this whirlpool effect that puts people in their place where they can't really do anything. They're stunned. She has the thunder that's like chain lightning kind of. It's like a static shock across the board. And she has like a ice bolt arrow that's an auto cast. It's pretty dope. Ranged attack. You could actually... Oh no, wait, that's I was thinking about this chick. My bad.
Tier list. Where will we place the final ones? Naga
No,
Sea
Naga
Witch.
has a bow.
Very
Yeah.
occasionally do we see Naga Sea Witch first. Human has sometimes gone Naga.
Yeah, and she has that blue orb arrow tip that does like frost damage, I'm pretty sure. And I haven't gotten her to level 6. I have never used her ultimate.
First to rush a night a night elf player. Naga first with Footman and Militia and then Tower Rush. We've seen some cool wins on Echo Isles, for instance. If the Night Elf is trying to creep the mercenary camp first with Warden or Demon, and they're still busy, and the Naga suddenly comes to the base with 3 footies and 4 Militia, that has been a win condition before, even against players such as Moon. She's a great second hero. We don't see her all that much as a third. So what is Naga? Naga is mostly a frost arrow caster. At a very cheap mana point, she can infuse her auto attacks from range with frost,
I am going to give her an A tier for myself.
which slows enemy units and deals a bit of damage. Then she has a nuke with forked lightning. Hits
I
3
think
targets.
Grubby's going to give her
Pretty
an
fast
S tier.
cast. Pretty high nuke damage per target, so it's pretty good at taking down a bunch of units like Riflemen or doing some extra front-loaded damage on Druids of the Claw. Archmage Naga is a key hero combination against Demon Hunter. Archmage Naga doesn't get used all that much against Orc. Really not that valuable against Undead either. And in Human Mirror, Naga has seen some play with Archmage Naga, but it's mostly against Night Elf that we see Archmage Naga. Undead. This is probably the only non-Undead hero that Undead likes to hire from the Tavern. And it is with a relative high frequency in the entire life of the Warcraft 3 one-on-one tournament meta. DK into Naga or DK Lich into Naga has been a very common strategy. With Forked Lightning, it's another spell of nuke damage with her ranged attack and pretty good damage on her basic attack. She and Lich are 2 machine gunners shooting from the back, and it helps suppress the enemy Demon Hunter to prevent him from moving in, mana burning DK, mana burning Lich, and then walking away with relative high movement speed. The Frost Arrow makes that move hurt a lot more. He comes slower into their range and he leaves slower out of their range again with all the Fiends and the DK and the Lich. Additionally, she's mana burn resistant herself. Although Forked Lightning costs 110 mana.
She's mana burn resistant? I didn't know that.
Frost Arrow itself is cheap I think it's 8 mana per shot. So even if she got mana burned for 150 by mana burn level 3, you only need to wait a few seconds and you'll have another Frost Arrow, which you cannot say for something like, you know, War Stamp or Shockwave or Carrion Swarm. If you get mana burned, you may not cast another spell the rest of the fight. That's why small, either complete passives like Unholy Aura and Endurance are good against mana burn, and really small release spells such as Orb effects like Frost Arrow and Black Arrow from the Dark Ranger. This and many reasons have made Naga perhaps the best Tavern hero in the game, in my opinion. And that's why I think she might be one of the few that I dare to put in tier A. A classic from the beginning of the game until the end.
Nice.
Currently being featured in multiple matchups, multiple serious matchups. She can swim, if only she could go through water as well.
I honestly thought when I first came back to Warcraft 3, I ended up picking her up the one time. Like when I first got back on, I thought that she was able to go into the water. Nah.
Her Mana Shield and her Tornado are most likely
Tornado,
not
that's right.
her key spells. Mana Shield did get buffed. It's actually pretty good. But as with all spells that require an enemy to hit you first to be effective, you ultimately don't have agency in how to utilize it. Reincarnation, Thorns, Mana Shield, Spiked Carapace, right? All of these require an enemy to hit you first. And while that's the same for Frost Armor has such an enormous effect that is offensive in nature, which is more than a little bit of damage from CL, that Mana Shield really doesn't see as much use. And it's not the reason to get her. If you're looking for a tank, you'll probably get Pitlord or Panda or Beastmaster. You're not getting Naga and then you're going to use her as a tank. It's a pretty cool idea, and you may pick it sometimes in a pinch, but it's mostly about Frost Arrow first, Fork Lightning second.
Yeah.
And Tornado, well, I don't think I've ever seen it in a tournament game where it made the difference, but it's a cool spell. Okay, next, Pandaren Brewmaster. Pandaren Brewmaster...
So, straight up and down, Panda is tier S when it gets its ultimate. Tier S when it gets its ultimate because it breaks into 3 different elements and they're all their own. They all have their own abilities. It's dope if you can actually get a game to go that long, or if you're able to power level them to level 6 that fast. I've seen it before. We've seen it before. I actually have a video posted where Buddy was playing Night Elf, went Panda, and he got him up to like level 4, level 5, but we outdone him a couple level 5s. I'm pretty sure our Lich got to level 6, right? Not only that, but he has that Fire Breath. He also has, that Drunken State, and then when he uses the Fire Breath on top of that, it ends up doing a plus 25% damage extra or something like that. I'm not too sure. And then his passive
offers Night Elf something that they do not have without Pandaren Brewmaster. Amazing anti-air. Via Drunken Haze, which can do up to 85%
Drunken
miss
Haze,
chance.
that's it.
And via Fire Breath, which can do hundreds of points of damage. More so if they were drunk first, it will keep burning. Pandaren Brewmaster is the anti-air hero for...
Yeah, he's S class. I think Grubby's going to put him in S too.
For both human and for Night Elf. Orc generally can make it for anti-air as well, but they almost always end up regretting it because they either use Blade Lightning Orb or Farseer Chain Lightning or Shadow Serpent Wards. They have a couple of ways of dealing with air, and Orc will also probably maybe get Bat Riders against certain air, especially small air can be countered by Orc, whereas big air generally gets countered by Lightning Orb. That's not to say Orc doesn't struggle with air, it's just that they usually aren't willing to sacrifice one of their key heroes for a Panda. If any of their anti-air methods were worse than they are, I think we would see more Panda just to deal with air. But air also isn't as common against Orc. Well, it can be good against Orc. Usually what people do against Orc is spellcasters, as their Dispel is also not so good. So, Panda is the anti-air hero. He's also really good against ground. He's a great tank. He provides a slow effect, a mischance.
He is a good tank. He can tank with the best of them.
Provides massive area of effect damage. His ultimate is one of the best in the game. He becomes invincible. He splits into 3. All 3 are separately controllable.
Yeah.
His damage goes to like 225 DPS or something with those 3 elementals, which is just insane. It's even more damage than Metamorphosis.
Yeah.
Doesn't last as long. It does all kinds of effects. Taunt, Magic Immunity, Burning Aura, Windwalk, Dispel, Cyclone, all in a single ultimate. It's insane.
All of those.
So Panda is also tier A. We have seen some Panda first by human. We've seen more Panda first by Night Elf over the last 20 years.
Tier A. I thought he'd throw him in tier S.
We haven't really seen Panda first by Undead or Orc. Panda second is very common. Panda is very important for Warden, because Panda is also the primary mechanical damage dealer in the game. Fire Breath can kill siege engines and flying machines better than anything else in the game. So if ever you're facing Human Workshop, you should go Panda.
Panda.
He's good against buildings. He's good against workers. He's good against air. He's good against mechanicals. He's
good against everything. He's well-rounded
units that aren't buildings, air, or mechanicals. He's good. I would almost put him in tier S. It's just that he suffers from being from the Tavern, so he cannot be made as easily as a first hero. Panda scales a lot. He's not as good at level 1. He's much better at level 3 and beyond. We see Archmage
I'd say level 4.
in Human Mirror a
level
lot.
4 and up, because you can still gank the shit out of him when he's level 3.
You can try to get Fire Breath on Sorcerer's Priest, or particularly on Priest, in fact, in a Breaker Priest war. It's either Panda second or Mountain King second, after Archmage first, in a Breaker Priest war. So we've seen him a lot. He's very good. Tier A, high tier A, in fact. Okay, Dark Ranger. One of 2...
Dark Ranger. So, like, I end up grabbing Dark Ranger. I'm going to give her a high A tier for undead usage. For undead usage. You could get her as other races if you'd want to, but she's undead. It makes sense to get her third. We've seen Happy utilize it. That's where I got my strat from. And Happy is the greatest Warcraft 3 player of all time for undead. He's like the best player for undead in the world, which is crazy. Yeah, no, man. She's dope. Her arrows are dope. She also has, I think it's like a life siphon or something like that. I haven't really used it. She has her arrows, and then she also has her other spell where other heroes are unable to pop their spells. Can't cast anything.
Undead heroes from the Tavern. Dark Ranger is currently meta for Undead as a third hero against Orc, as a third hero against Human, and as a third hero against Undead. It's only a different hero usually against Night Elf, but it isn't bad against Elf either. So she's key right now as a third in 3 matchups. Dark Ranger first was used for many years by players like Moon as a first hero, and then you would rush Charm. You would play Dark Ranger first and go for mass expansions and archers, and then eventually mass dryads, and then mass bears, and then mass chimera. She was part of the Blood Castle strategy, which you should Google if you've never seen it before. Warcraft 3 Blood Castle, amazing game. Right? So Dark Ranger is good. SK Hot, rest in peace, he's no longer with us. From Ukraine, legendary player, great guy. Loved going for Dark Ranger first as well. Very good with it as well, he was. Dark Ranger third, Dark Ranger first. We don't see Dark Ranger second all that much right now, and I don't think a hero...
The only time I could see Dark Ranger being played second is with Night Elf. If they were to go the Priestess of the Moon first, into her, and then into Naga, or Priestess of the Moon into Naga, into the Warden. Yeah, something like that. I'm like trying to theory craft some stuff about archers and stuff, because next month we are going to be choosing a new faction to use in Warcraft 3.
To be viable as a first or second to be high tier. But I do think if you're only good as a third hero, you cannot be tier S for sure. You might be A, but I mostly see her as a B. There are plenty of games that DK Lich win before she comes out.
That's true.
She used to share the limelight as a third hero against Orc with Pitlord. Now she's more common than Pitlord, but I still think Pitlord isn't bad. You could still replace it and have a really good game. She's either B... I'm gonna put her in B. I think B is deserved for her.
And that's his opinion. That's Grubby's opinion. I respect it. I'd throw her in an A.
Probably right here if I were to rank them. Black Arrow gives skeletons upon kill. Silence
Skeleton
is
silence.
an area of effect silence that lasts freaking long on units and pretty long on heroes. So she can prevent the Shadow TC Hex War Stomp combo.
Yep.
And she can prevent coil during certain times so that she can kill heroes or units in Undead Mirror. Yeah, she has lots of purposes. And then Life Drain has been buffed a lot, but it's not really very good in pro play. Charm obviously is very strong. Then final hero. What a foolish boy, Pitlord. Where shall...
So for Pitlord, I've never really used Pitlord outside, like on ladder or ranked or anything like that. I haven't really used them other than just playing the main story. Man, I know that he's like a big boss that you go up against. He's pretty strong. He has what is it, like that stonefall or whatever, avalanche I'll call it, where stones end up falling from the sky. You can throw them shits at you. I'm not too familiar. I think he has a stomp too. I know he has an aura with him. For me, I don't use him. I'd put him in D or C. I think Grubby's actually going to put him in C. I think he's a circumstantial unit. Like a circumstantial hero that you want to get depending on the situations.
Shall we place him? Would he forgive me if I place him anywhere except tier S?
So he's an
He
S
might
tier.
not, but I have to be honest. My honesty to you guys is more important than my safety from Pitlord. So, where's Pitlord? Howl of Terror is an amazing damage suppressant. 35 to 80% damage reduction
Nice.
as a debuff on units around him in a relatively large area. Single cast and immediate effect. Huge physical damage suppressant. Very strong. Particularly good against things like riflemen, archers, headhunters. Then there's Rain of Fire, which is like Blizzard, but has a small damage lingering effect. He's also shorter range than Blizzard. He also has more mana cost than Blizzard. And he has a smaller mana pool than Archmage. He also doesn't have Brilliance. So think of Rain of Fire as a very bad Blizzard. Think of Pitlord that goes Rain of Fire as a very bad Archmage.
Damn.
But we do see some third Pitlord sometimes.
That's one way of looking
after
at
DK
it.
Lich Pitlord to break human sieges like mass towers into something. The reason he fell out of vogue by Undead against Human is because if you try to get Pitlord to break mass towers, he is after that much more useless after picking Rain of Fire against things like Griffins and Knights and Breakers than another hero such as Dark Ranger might be. So we don't really see him third all that much anymore. As a first hero, only ever Night Elves tried to do it, and it is gimmicky at best. As a second, you can try to make a fun build like DK Pitlord Necromancer, give him Unholy Aura, and then use Cleave. Not a lot of second. He's mostly as a third because he's resistant to coil. So if you get him third as Night Elf against Undead, he can't be coiled, he's a tank. But generally, neither Howl or Rain of Fire are good enough to really place him all that high. I'm going to put Pitlord in tier C. He's got some purpose with the...
I agree. Tier C is straight circumstantial. And like, I'm not too familiar with using him. I don't use this hero. So realistically it's a D for me, but I do know that you can utilize him. I've seen him in pro play before. I've seen him just in play on 1v1s in general a few times. It took me by surprise seeing him and how tanky he is. He's a good tank. Yeah, C. Counter. C for
Rain of
counter.
Fire Rush. Howl of Terror is strong, but usually just debuffing enemy physical attack is not good enough of a reason to get a hero. The best thing about him is Cleave. Cleave is starting with the letter C. Cleave is actually insane. Level 3 Cleave has an area of effect that's about as big as my hair right now.
Damn.
It used to be, and I think it's still the case, if you attack a town hall, if you think of the back of the town hall, Cleave extends beyond that.
Damn.
And I say that, you cannot actually cleave through a town hall. Attacking buildings doesn't proc cleave. But if there was a unit at the start of a town hall and there's a unit at the end of a town hall, cleave would still hit them. That's a giant arc. Like a bag of fries in the Netherlands. That's how big it is. And the amount of damage it deals is insane. 90 or 95% of his base damage is done to the targets behind him. And armor is not taken into account. So it even deals more damage on things behind sometimes than what's in front.
It's kind of like Bristleback in Dota 2.
I'm not sure that's true actually. I think maybe armor is taken into account. The first unit armor is taken into account, and then it applies to everything behind 90% of the damage it did. It's ridiculous range, it's ridiculous damage. In 4 hits you can kill an entire peasant line. The only problem is he needs to be level 5 for it. Level 1 cleave is also decent, but he needs lots of items to be good. And most races that would like to get the Pitlord could get something else equivalent. You're probably not going to get him as a damage dealer and a tank over Demon. You're probably not going to get him as a damage dealer and tank over Blade. Though there has been a Shadow Hunter into Pitlord meta, in Orc Mirror specifically. Shadow first into Pitlord, but only on maps like Amazonia and Terranist Stand, where you could actually abuse Lightning Shield to creep your Shadow. And then you go Pitlord second because he comes out earlier and your tech is late, so you can't wait for Blade. So Orc has sometimes used him, Undead has sometimes used him, Human very rarely has used him, and Night Elf has very rarely used him as well. I think, and this is without tooting my own horn, the highest profile use of Pitlord was the Sicard game, me versus Sicard in BlizzCon. And the only reason I went Pitlord in a $10,000 tournament is because I misclicked. Pitlord hotkey is I. No, O. Pitlord hotkey is O. Firelord hotkey is I. No.
He hit O instead of I. They're right beside each other. It can happen.
Pitlord is I.
Misclicks happen.
Firelord is O.
That sucks though in tournament
There we go.
play.
Now you see how it happened. And I was clicking somewhere to the right side of my keyboard. And I was trying to get Firelord, which is a rush hero, and instead I got Pitlord, which is a late game hero. And my opponent, Sicard, actually thought I was showboating him. He thought I was trying to give him a live humiliation, a metaphorical wedgie on the biggest stage of all, the BlizzCon Worldwide Invitational Tournament, Grand Finals, Grubby versus Sicard, Netherlands versus Korea. You're like, oh, just beating me isn't enough? You're gonna humiliate me with Pitlord? You know what he did? He impulsively made Alchemist instead of Firelord. We were supposed to go Farseer Firelord both. He knew the same song and dance I did. Hell, he invented Farseer Firelord. Literally invented it in 2004. 1 year later, everybody's doing it. I'm doing it, he's doing it. My grandmother would be doing it if she'd be playing Warcraft 3. But because I misclicked and made Pitlord, he impulsively let his intrusive thoughts win and made Alchemist. And we had one of the coolest games ever, and both got level 6. And I got Doom, and he got Transmute. I ended up narrowly winning, and that was a really cool game. But it was all a mistake. So,
Some crazy things could come from mistakes, said some parents.
Lord is a mistake. Still better than Priestess and Cryptlord though. Alright, that's my tier list for Warcraft 3. I would like you to let me know how wrong I was on literally every single one of these in comments. I want to know how angry you are that your favorite hero is not in tier S, or that I've rated all these heroes wrongly. Let me know in the most unreasonable way possible. Or, if you can summon it, I'd like to hear some thoughts and reasonable commentary. That's okay as well. And remember to give the video a like or a dislike. And if you got to this point, please subscribe to Grubby Talks. I have 3 YouTube channels, and Grubby Talks is actually the fastest growing one by subscriber count monthly. So please help contribute to that stat. It's a lot of fun making content on this channel. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the list, and see you next time. Bye.
So that's Grubby's list. That's Grubby's list. We had a couple disagreements of placements of certain specific heroes and whatever. There's some heroes that we don't know too much about, and then there's heroes that we do know a little bit about, especially with like the Orc and Undead. Mostly Orc, Undead now, because I've been playing Undead. I know quite a bit about the Undead, except for the Tavern hero. I don't know too much about her. I just been going off what I've seen from Happy, but I do read her stats every time I pick her up, right? But yeah, no man, that's Grubby's tier list. I gave my opinions. If you have any opinions on how you would change it, you know, feel free, leave a comment, suggestions down below, all that good stuff. If you want, you could even vent it out in the Discord. Feel free to hit up the Discord down below. Hit me up on any one of my other social media platforms down below as well. Pretty much going to be calling it a night here. Yeah, jeez, went a little bit longer than I thought, but that's alright, man. That's alright. I appreciate every single one of you guys coming through, chilling with your homie. And yeah, no man, just let me know if you enjoyed the stream. Feel free to leave a like, sub, all that good stuff. If you're into Warcraft 3 the way I'm into Warcraft 3, feel free to hit up Grubby Talks or any one of Grubby's channels if you don't already follow him, and check it out yourself. He has a bunch of content over there. And huge shout out to Grubby, mad respect, and thanks for him allowing the Warcraft 3 community to pretty much react to his tier lists. And like, we're able to create our own. We're probably going to start getting into creating our own tier list for Yu-Gi-Oh! And for Warcraft. But yeah, no man, it's been dope. I appreciate everybody for coming once again. Have yourselves a wonderful evening. Till next time, take it easy, take care of yourself and each other. Peace.